Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is demanding OP pays for her surgery. Am I the jerk for refusing to lend my mom money for her surgery after she called me selfish? My mom's been dealing with health issues for a while now, and it's really been a hard thing to watch. A couple of months ago, she came out that she needs surgery to fix a problem she's been ignoring because, honestly, she couldn't afford to do anything about it. Now, it's serious, and this surgery is expensive. I'm not struggling financially, but I wouldn't say I'm rolling in money either. I've got a decent job, but I also have goals. I'm saving for a house, an emergency fund, maybe starting a family someday. The kind of money she's asking for isn't just pocket change. It would throw a major wrench into all of my plans. She's been asking me to help her cover the cost for a while now, but I've been hesitant. It's not that I don't want to help, it's just a massive amount of money to suddenly come up with. The other day, she called me in tears, saying she was scared her surgery would get delayed because she couldn't pay for it. It broke my heart, but I told her I couldn't give her the full amount. Instead, I offered to help with part of it if she could show me that she had looked into other options, like insurance, payment plans, or loans. I thought that was a fair compromise. I mean, I can't just throw all my savings at this without knowing she's tried other ways first, right? Well, apparently not. She completely lost it. She accused me of not caring about her and said I was selfish for not helping my own mother in her time of need. Then she brought up how much she sacrificed for me growing up, how she worked long hours, skipped vacations, and basically put her own needs aside so I could have everything I wanted. She said I should be willing to do the same for her. I get it, I do. She did a lot for me when I was younger, and I'll always be grateful for that. But it's not like I've been sitting around doing nothing. I've helped her plenty over the years, whether it's paying for smaller medical bills, groceries, or just making sure she has what she needs. It's not like I don't care or I haven't done anything for her. I tried to explain all of this, but she wasn't having it. She just kept saying I was letting her down when she needed me the most. Now she's telling everyone in the family that I'm a terrible daughter who refuses to help her. I've gotten calls and texts from relatives saying I should be ashamed of myself. A couple of them even offered to chip in just so I wouldn't look like such an awful person. It's also overwhelming. I feel like I can't win here. If I give her the money, I'm setting myself back financially in a way that could take years to recover from. But if I don't, I'm the bad guy who let my mom down. The worst part is, I don't even know if she's tried the other options I suggested. She just immediately went to blaming me for not stepping up. It's made me question everything. Am I really being selfish? Should I just suck it up and give her the money? Or is it okay to draw a line when it comes to my own financial future? I don't know what to do anymore. She's not even speaking to me right now unless it's to guilt trip me or make me feel like I'm the worst person alive. And the family drama she stirred up has made it impossible to think straight. Am I really such a terrible daughter for refusing to pay for her surgery? Not the jerk. If she's not already pursued insurance or loans, then it's sounding like she's attempting to use you as a loans company. I agree she should look at those options first before asking people for money straight up. Not being mother's insurance company does not equal being a bad daughter. The real jerk here is the country that doesn't provide affordable healthcare for its residents. The decisions to live in pain or be comfortable but in poverty or debt are heartbreaking. No jerks here. You are both in an impossible situation. Not the jerk. It's a parent's job to make sacrifices for their kids. If they don't want to do that, they shouldn't be parents. She's emotionally blackmailing you and trying to use other people against you by gossiping about you to others. It's absolutely horrible. And why doesn't she have the money? Didn't she save? Doesn't she have a job? Why is her health your responsibility? Did something happen to put her out of work? This may be our last Christmas, and I'm really not sure where to go from here with my husband. 2 Christmases ago, my husband spent all of November teasing me about what he got me for Christmas. Every day was a guessing game. He'd drop little hints or smirk when I guessed wrong, acting like he had planned something big and exciting. I'll admit, I got caught up in the anticipation. But a week before Christmas, he sat me down, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I need to tell you something." I thought maybe he was about to give me an early gift or share a heartfelt surprise. Nope, he just said, "I was joking the whole time. I didn't get you anything." I was crushed. I didn't even know what to say. It felt like a punch to the gut after weeks of build-up. To make matters worse, there was a major snowstorm coming just a couple of days before Christmas, and he was planning to make a store run before it hit. I scraped together every bit of loose change and random bills I could find, about $10 or $15, and begged him to pick up something, anything, so I'd at least have something to open on Christmas morning. When he got back from the store, he handed me the money I'd given him and said, "I didn't get you anything. I didn't want to inconvenience the cashier or the people in line." For context, he was using self-checkout. I was devastated. I didn't even try to hide how upset I was, and I think it finally hit him how much it hurt. So the next day, he went back out and got me a beautiful eyeshadow palette and a lipstick. They were nice. Honestly, too nice for what I'd expected after everything, but I've never been able to use them. Every time I look at them, I just remember how awful that whole experience was. Fast forward to this year. 2 weekends ago, we went out of town to get Christmas presents for everyone. It turned into a fun day. We hit an arcade, ate at my favorite restaurant, and even went to this free Christmas drive-through light display we discovered last year. It was amazing, way better than the ones we've paid for in the past. The next day, we went out of town again because there was an item he wanted that was only available at a store an hour and a half away. It just so happened to be near his favorite light display, so we went there too and ate out again. It all seemed fine, like we were having a good time together, but last weekend things took a turn. I asked him to help me clean the house, and his response was, "If I didn't personally make the mess, I shouldn't have to help." The thing is, most of the mess was his. Soda bottles, food wrappers, dirty dishes, you name it. Every time I ask for help, he's full of excuses. He claims he helps out, but what he actually does is let the dogs out, then sits in the backyard for hours playing on his phone while the dogs do their thing. We have a fenced backyard. They don't need supervision. Other than that, he changes the cat litter and takes the trash out once a week. Meanwhile, I do everything else. I've told him I've been feeling overwhelmed and I need help. I said I want to be able to sit down and relax too, even for a little bit, because I'm reaching my breaking point. His response, "When do I get to relax? I had to take you all over the state buying you Christmas presents and seeing Christmas lights instead of relaxing." Then he took his wedding ring off, threw it, and said, "We're done." He stonewalled me for the rest of the night and the entire next day. Eventually, he put his ring back on like nothing had happened, but I haven't. I can't. Right now, I'm just going through the motions, trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, he's acting like everything is fine, talking about seeing more lights, like the argument never happened. I told him to take the presents he got me back because I don't want them anymore. Not if this is how he feels about giving them. It's not even about the gifts, it's about respect. It's about valuing your partner and not making them feel like a burden or an obligation. It's about wanting to celebrate your relationship, not making it feel like a chore. And I think I finally figured out why I get so excited for Christmas in November, only to lose all interest when it actually comes around. It's because of this. Every year, it's just a reminder that I don't feel celebrated or appreciated. Now I just don't know what to do. When he took off his ring and said he was done, that was your Christmas present. Time to shout out, "Oh my goodness, it's perfect. Exactly what I need. I love it. Thank you so much." Your Christmas present to yourself this year should be a divorce. Why is your bar for a suitable life partner this low? None of this is acceptable behavior from him. Please do yourself a favor and leave him now. Am I the jerk for selling my house out from under my son and his girlfriend? I'm a 60-year-old woman who's been renting my second home to my son, Joe, who's 34, for the last 7 years. At first, he shared the house with friends, and I charged him below market rent. The lease agreement always included reasonable, periodic rent increases, and Joe knew from the start that this house was part of my retirement plan. I was very clear with him that if the property ever became a financial risk, I'd have no choice but to sell. Over the years, there were a few close calls. Once, the homeowner's insurance got canceled because the house wasn't being properly maintained. That was a mess to fix, but we managed to get it reinstated after some corrections. Then there were 2 times when I lost my job and struggled to cover the mortgages on both my primary home and the rental. Both times, I hustled to find work and avoided selling, but I had serious talks with Joe during those periods. I reminded him that he needed to be prepared for the possibility that I might have to sell the house. I even tried to plant the idea in his head that he should save money to buy the house if he wanted to. Initially, he didn't seem interested. But about 2 years ago, his girlfriend, who's 32, moved in with him, and suddenly he started showing more interest. I was thrilled for him. They seemed happy together. They asked their housemates to move out so they could have the place to themselves as a couple, and his girlfriend really took the initiative to clean the house and keep it in better shape. I appreciated that so much. Then the neighborhood started to change. Investors came in and started buying properties for ridiculously inflated prices, mostly to rent them out. Houses were sitting vacant for months at a time, and there was a shooting just a block away. It became clear to me that it was time to get out. I could sell the house at a premium before the market shifted and secure my retirement. In fall of 2023, I sat there with Joe and his girlfriend and explained the situation. I gave them almost a full year's notice, until fall of 2024, to make other arrangements. We talked briefly about their finances, and it was clear they weren't in a position to buy the house and probably never would be, given how much home values had skyrocketed. I thought we had handled the conversation like adults. That's when everything took a nosedive. His girlfriend started being outright rude, to my face and through text. When they moved out, they left petty, spiteful messages in the house, like intentionally damaged areas and notes that felt vindictive. They refused to give anyone in the family their new address. Back in 2017, I had promised Joe that I'd give him a portion of the profit if I ever sold the house. Despite everything, I stuck to that promise. The day after I mailed him the check, he changed his phone number. He's gone completely no contact with me since then, and it's broken my heart. His father, my ex-husband, who's 71, told me Joe eventually reached out to him, but he still won't give his address. He even told my ex that if I ever got his phone number, he'd just change it again. He said the reason they cut me out of their lives is because I sold the house out from under them. Now, I can't help but wonder, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You gave your son notice all along that this was not a long-term solution. You talked with son and his girlfriend, and they could not afford to buy the house. You kept your word all throughout this, including writing that check to him, which I wouldn't have done myself. OP, I'm sorry you're hurting over this loss and how they're treating you. Sadly, your son was looking for you to continue how things went, even when it got hard for you. Your son forgets that you could have sold the house when you lost your job earlier. What would he have done then? Probably treated you the same way. It sadly sounds like to them, you will always be the villain in their story. I'm so sorry that you're going through this right now. Am I overreacting to something that he did a year ago when we were in a rocky patch? We've been together for 5 years. We don't live together yet because of work, school, and family issues, but that was supposed to change next year. It felt like we were finally getting closer to the life we've always been talking about, but now I'm not so sure. He's been working full-time remotely while also going to school full-time for his master's. I work full-time too, and we live about 40 minutes apart. I've tried to be understanding about how stressful his schedule is, and I've done my best to make things easier. Most weekends, I stay at his place because it just makes sense. He has 2 dogs, and it's easier for me to get to him than the other way around. He doesn't drive, so I do all of the commuting. Sometimes I'll even go midweek to see him, even though I'm exhausted from work. The problem is, he's been really on edge and stressed out, which I get, but he often takes it out on me. It's always something. He gets upset that we only see each other once a week, like I'm not already bending over backward to make this work. I know he can't put in equal effort right now, and I've accepted that. But at the same time, I'm human, and I get tired of feeling like I'm the only one holding everything together. When he's in one of his moods, I end up snapping back, and it turns into a full-blown fight. Last year was especially rough. We didn't break up, but there were weekends when I just couldn't deal with the drama, so I stayed home. Things improved this year, at least I thought they did, until a few days ago when I was at his place. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, and I happened to glance over. I saw an icon I recognized immediately, a dating app. My stomach dropped. I asked him about it, and he said he hadn't used it in a long time. I told him to open it, and he did. His profile was paused, but it still had his name and photo. There were several likes from women on the app, which meant his profile had been visible long enough for people to interact with it. He admitted that he had downloaded the app during a big fight last year when we hadn't seen each other for over a week. He swore he never paid for it or talked to anyone and that it was just a stupid mistake. I was furious. I told him it didn't matter if he didn't talk to anyone. The fact that he even put himself out there was humiliating for me. Anyone could have seen his profile. How does being mad at me justify putting himself on a dating app? He kept apologizing, saying it was a dumb, impulsive decision and that he never actually used it, but the damage was done. I left. Now he's upset because this all happened right as he graduated and Christmas is next week. We were supposed to spend it with his family, and he's saying I'm overreacting to something that didn't even happen. He keeps telling me I'm ruining these big moments we were supposed to celebrate together and that I should be focusing on our future, like us moving in together next year. But I just feel completely disrespected. I've spent years making sacrifices to keep this relationship going. I've been understanding of his stress, his workload, and everything else. I've done everything I can to show him I'm committed to us, and this is what I get in return? A stupid, paused profile that tells me in some fight he thought about replacing me? I don't even know what to think right now. Am I overreacting, or is this a deal breaker? You should not build a life with someone you're in a relationship with that downloaded a dating app because you were fighting. You should not build a life with someone that tries to minimize doing so. That's a character thing, not something that can be apologized for. Staying with someone like this would keep you on eggshells every time you had an argument. Good for you that you left. Don't look back. You're not wrong for being mad that he was thinking about cheating. I would break up with my girlfriend instantly if she downloaded a dating app. Not the jerk. You don't download dating apps over fights. I don't understand why people today think it's appropriate. If you were fighting, you take some time to yourself and then come back and discuss it. You don't go looking for other people to make you feel better. Also, why was it not deleted? Kind of suspicious. Am I the jerk for inviting our oldest daughter over for Christmas dinner with the stipulation that her cheating boyfriend cannot join? I'm 56, female. My husband is 60, and we have 3 kids. Kate, who's 30, Sam, who's 28, and Mary, who's 26. Kate's boyfriend is James, and they've been together for almost 3 years. They live together, and he's been a regular at all our family holiday gatherings. Honestly, he always came across as a great guy, polite, mature, and really grounded. His family is also lovely. Kate and James seemed super happy. They just clicked in a way that made us all think this is it for her. From everything she shared, they had this amazing communication, never fought, and were already discussing marriage. About 7 months ago, Kate told me he had taken her to get her ring finger measured at a jewelry store. She was so excited, and we were all over the moon for her. It felt like things were finally perfectly into place. But then, about 4 months ago, the rug got yanked out from under us. I found out from a friend's daughter, long story, that James was having some kind of an online affair. I couldn't believe it. None of us could. It just didn't fit the image that we had of him. We told Kate immediately, and when she confronted him, it all came out. According to her, James broke down crying and spilled everything. He didn't make excuses or try to shift the blame. He admitted he messed up, took full responsibility, and even started going to counseling right away to figure out why he had done it. Kate told us she wanted to try to work things out. She said James was going above and beyond to make things right. He's been completely transparent with her, giving her his undivided attention and doing whatever he can to rebuild trust. They even went on a romantic getaway to reconnect. She says they've had deep, honest conversations, and he's acknowledged that regaining her trust will take time. James also reached out to me and my husband to apologize. He was in tears and told us how sorry he was, how much he loved Kate, and how committed he was to becoming a better person. Honestly, it was a lot. I appreciated the apology, but I also couldn't help feeling skeptical. Once trust is broken like that, it's hard to look at someone the same way again. Fast forward to now, Christmas Eve is coming up. Our family always does a big holiday dinner. It's going to be me, my husband, Sam and his girlfriend, Mary and her husband, and hopefully Kate. When I invited Kate, I told her that James wouldn't be invited this year. I just don't feel ready to welcome him back into the fold like nothing happened. Kate was really upset. She told me that the past couple of months have been good for them and they've been working hard to rebuild their relationship. She said James is still going to counseling and doing everything he can to prove he's serious about changing. She even mentioned that not inviting him feels like the family isn't willing to give him the second chance she's giving him. She also brought up how awkward it would feel for her to come without him. With all the other couples there, she said she'd feel like a third wheel, which honestly hit me harder than I expected. I get where she's coming from, but I also feel like actions have consequences. I've talked to the rest of the family about it, and they're all on board with not inviting James. Everyone feels like it's too soon and that Christmas Eve isn't the time to pretend everything's fine. But now I'm stuck. I don't want to alienate Kate, but I also don't think it's fair for James to just walk back into the family dynamic like nothing happened. Am I the jerk? Info. Why didn't you invite James? I understand he cheated on your daughter. That's not the answer I'm looking for. My question is, what is the reason you didn't invite James and how do you expect it to play out? Examples. My husband and I are still too mad at James for betraying our daughter to be around him. Him being there will make us angry and we just don't feel we can relax and be happy around James. I understand that Kate will feel bad if we exclude him, but we're excluding him for us and not for her. If Kate decides to go spend Christmas with James' family instead so they can spend it together, then so be it. What's most important is me not having to look at that jerk James. You're the jerk. You need to be in your daughter's corner right now. I've been through this with someone very close. Her partner cheated on her in a way that went beyond online, and while we had disdain for the broken trust and betrayal and made it clear that we did not expect her to just forgive him, that we'd 100% back her if she divorced him, we also let her know we'd respect her wishes no matter what she chose. Ultimately, she's the one who was most hurt by this, and she gets to choose how to move forward. She chose to forgive him. It took a lot of time to build that trust back up. We obviously couldn't just forget what he had done, neither could she. But if she felt ready to bring him to family gatherings again, we would do our best to respect that and show her that we were in her corner no matter what and trusted her judgment. I understand that he hurt her and that hurts you, but they're trying to heal. You may not agree with that right now, you may never agree with that, but I think doing this, excluding him when she wants him there, may keep the wound festering. Your daughter, the one who was the most hurt by this, is trying to move forward. If she can stomach living with him after what he did, I think the rest of the family can stomach it for her happiness during the holiday. You're the jerk. They're trying their very best to make this work, and it sounds like the boyfriend is doing sufficient to make your daughter happy, and things are looking up for them. Why on earth would you want to exclude him? The only person who bestows forgiveness is your daughter, and she's done this. It's nothing to do with you. That should be the end of it. All you're doing by excluding him is ruining their Christmas, putting additional strain and stress on your daughter and her boyfriend, and getting to feel all holier than thou. Show some faith in your daughter, as well as some Christmas spirit, please. Not the jerk. You have every right to set boundaries, especially after James' betrayal. It's understandable that Kate wants to include him, but you're also protecting your family and making sure trust is rebuilt. It's a tough situation, but you're just looking out for what's best for everyone. If Kate feels hurt, maybe have a calm conversation with her to explain your feelings and concerns. Not the jerk if this is how you feel. He needs to earn himself back into the circle of trust. 2 months doesn't cut it in my opinion. You get to decide when it's your house. You're the jerk. Butt out of her relationship. You're trying to make it harder for her to stay with this guy, but that's not for you to decide whether she stays with him or not. Lots of in-laws don't like each other, but they still have to be cordial to each other. What if they break up because of your pressure and she never meets anyone else and spends the rest of her life blaming you? Do you want to be responsible for ruining her happiness? You might try to claim it was because of his online affair, but if they've moved past that, then to her it will still be because of you and she won't forgive you. Let her make her own decisions. She knows better what's best for herself. My wife expects me, a pro athlete, to wake up in the middle of the night to help with the baby. My wife, Katie, 25 female, and I, 28 male, had our first baby together about 3 months ago. I'm an athlete and Katie is a stay-at-home mom. Sleep is very important for me because of my sport. I can't be waking up multiple times throughout the night and be sleep deprived. Katie and I talked about this before trying for a kid, and I told her that I can't compromise my sleep for anything short of an emergency. I specifically mentioned that I wouldn't be waking up during the night to help with the baby, but we could hire a night nurse to help out. Things had been going smoothly until a few days ago, when Katie was being cold and distant. I asked if something was wrong, and she said everything was fine. She was quiet for a while, then finally mentioned that it's extremely unfair that I'm not helping her at all with the baby during the night. I acknowledged that she has been working hard and not getting much sleep, but we also previously agreed to this arrangement. Katie has refused to hire a night nurse to help because she doesn't trust someone new to watch our baby alone during the night. I suggested that she could have a family member help, but she didn't want to burden them. So we've been at an impasse. She still doesn't want to hire help, and I'm still not waking up during the night. Additional info. We have a maid that cleans and does the laundry multiple times per week, and we also have a meal delivery service that makes the majority of our food, so I'm not just dumping tons of housework on her. Katie doesn't have a problem with the maid being around the baby because she's known her for a while now. We've also been going to regular doctor and therapist appointments. They don't think she's suffering from postpartum. Hiring a night nurse would not be a financial burden, so the cost isn't the issue. I spend as much time as I can caring for and bonding with our baby, just not during the night when I'm sleeping. Edit for clarity. I'm a professional athlete, and my sport is our primary source of income. Update. Some of you mentioned the idea of doing a test run period with a night nurse helping out during the day while other people are awake and around, which I think is a good idea. I talked to Katie about hiring a night nurse to temporarily help out during the day, and she agreed and seemed happy about the idea. That way she can get familiar with the new nurse and feel more comfortable about transitioning to a full night type of arrangement. She also apologized for lashing out at me and explained that she was mostly too embarrassed to ask her family for more help when she already has hired help as a stay-at-home mom. So we agreed to ask my sister since they have a really good relationship. My sister has offered to come by 1 or 2 nights per week to watch our son until Katie's comfortable having the night nurse be full-time and alone. That way, Katie immediately gets at least some uninterrupted sleep too for now. As some of you figured out, I play baseball. Season officially starts in late March with spring training late February, so I won't be home much because of travel schedule. So that at least gives us a couple of months to get comfortable with a night nurse and a nanny so she isn't too overwhelmed. Not the jerk. I thought this would be the normal story of the wife doing all of the baby stuff, cooking, cleaning, etc. But you have a maid and food service, so she mostly just does the baby stuff. And seeing as how this is the only thing you've told her and made clear before even having a baby plus giving her multiple solutions, you're definitely not the jerk. Not the jerk. You clearly set boundaries and offered alternatives, but maybe you can give a little. Is there a night of the week that you can let the wife sleep? Maybe have whoever the night nanny would be over for some day nanny stuff to build trust. You shouldn't compromise your profession, especially athletic ones that have health and injury risks that would also compromise your future earnings. But maybe this is a sign your wife just needs more help than she thought, and you gotta adapt somehow. No jerks here. I absolutely sympathize with your wife. I do. It's so hard in the beginning. Give her some grace. Sleep deprivation is no joke and can totally change a person. Is there maybe even one night a week you can help? An off season where you can help a bit? I hope if things don't improve with the baby's sleep, she will hire a night nurse so she isn't so resentful, as unfortunately, it sounds like that's where things are going. Best of luck to you all. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend's dad to let me out of the Tesla if he was going to let it drive itself? I spent last night with my boyfriend's family. We had gone out to dinner and his dad was going to drive. So my boyfriend, me, his parents, and his brother all squeezed into his dad's car and we went to the restaurant. I had a few drinks and his dad had too since he was going to drive. But on the way back, his dad started asking me, "You work on self-driving cars, yeah?" I do. I'm a systems engineer. He started asking me how I liked his Tesla, and I joked, "Just fine, as long as you're the one driving it." And he asked me what I thought about full self-driving, which he had just bought. He asked me if he should turn it on. I said, "Not with me in the car." And he then laughed and asked how I was still so scared when I work with this stuff every day. I was like, it's because but stopped when he pulled over and literally started turning it on. I was like, "I'm not kidding. Let me out of the car if you're going to do this." And my boyfriend's dad and brother started laughing at me, and my boyfriend still wasn't saying anything. His dad was like, "It'll be fine." And I reached over my boyfriend's brother and I tried to open the door, which was locked. I was getting mad, and probably more so because I was tipsy, and I yelled at him, "Let me out!" My boyfriend started trying to tell me to calm down because I was drunk, and I told him that it didn't matter. I'd be out of here if I was sober or drunk. He told me to stop talking like this in front of his little brother, and I told him to tell his dad to cut his crap out, and I wouldn't be acting this way. His dad was like, "Fine, I didn't realize it'd be such a big deal," and drove home normally, but things have been tense since. We got back to his house, and he was mad at me for overreacting the first time I met his family altogether. I got angry and was like, "I'm not the one who decided to do the one thing that I said I'm not comfortable with in the car, just after I asked him not to laugh at me." He said that his dad used the car a lot and it was fine. And I asked him, since we're both rock climbers, would he ever get on a route with his equipment that doesn't work? What if someone says they do it all the time and it's fine? He was like, "Absolutely not, but that's different." And I was like, "It's literally not. Just like we don't know any climbers who would do that, nobody in my field that I know would stay in that car." He got mad and told me to go to sleep. I was drunk. But honestly, today I woke up sober and I stand by what I did. Like, I wasn't comfortable with what was happening, and my boyfriend's family all laughed and started trying to do the one thing I said no to. Like, whatever that thing is, it's messed up. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend's dad to let me out of the car? Not the jerk. When someone tells me to let them out of my car, I don't hesitate. If it makes you that uncomfortable, then he should have just waited until you weren't in the car. Honestly, I don't have anything to do with anybody who thinks it's funny to scare me. Making people uncomfortable doesn't take a lot of skill. Not the jerk. Not the jerk at all. Honestly, it doesn't matter the situation. Someone asked you about a thing you have verifiable professional experience with. You expressed immediate discomfort and let them know it was something you didn't like and were not comfortable with. He completely disregarded your clear statement of being uncomfortable and then immediately engaged in the activity that you said you were uncomfortable with. I absolutely can't stand people that do the, "See, it's not that bad, you're fine." It's like they have to convince you that it's okay so that they can feel okay about it. I would be livid. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend's dad? Please let us know. Call me old-fashioned, but I would never want to be in one of those self-driving cars either. I don't care how safe people say they are. Don't want my help? Okay, sure. You just go ahead and get yourself fired. A bit of background. A while back, I was still in high school. I worked at the local cinema to earn a bit of pocket money and experience. I stayed for a couple of years, working weekends when school was in session. I think it was halfway into my second year when the target of this revenge came into the picture. We'll call him Luke. Luke was a new hire and he was just learning the ropes. This was common as turnover was high since we were all students. He seemed alright at first and everyone was nice to him since we were all pretty close and knew one another from high school and we welcomed him in. I don't think even a week had passed before the problem started. The first issue I heard of was that Luke was trying to flirt with one of the girls. Thing was, this girl was already in a relationship with one of the other employees, and everyone knew this, including Luke. That didn't stop him though, and eventually the girl told him to his face to cut it out. It only got worse from there. Now, I do my best to see the good in people and give them the benefit of the doubt. Despite what the others were saying, I still try to get along with him. This unfortunately changed during the first real conversation I had with him. We were on break at the same time, and about 5 of us crowded into the little break room for lunch. I forget what exactly we were talking about, but I remember it was an uncomfortable topic, and Luke was using a lot of language. The break room was not soundproof, and there were patrons outside, especially kids. I tried to warn him about talking like that so loudly, and that he might get in trouble if a customer heard him. Immediately, his attitude towards me changed, and he responded with something along the lines of, "I can say what I want. I have the right to free speech. Don't tell me what to do." What? Sheesh. Okay, chill. I was just concerned, but you do you. A few minutes later, the conversation had switched to high school, and Luke was raving about how Caucasians were the majority in all the high schools in our district. Now, for my high school, this isn't true, as most of the community and students attending were Latino and made up about 70% of our student body. I told him as much. Me. That's not the case for our high school. Luke. Yeah it is. We're the majority everywhere. I have a friend that goes there. Me. I actually go there. It's mostly Luke. Why are you talking? Me. Excuse me? Luke. Who invited you into this conversation? I wasn't talking to you. Who asked? Now, this irritated me. I know it's a joke about looking for who asked, but this was before that became a thing, and I found it extremely rude. But in a moment of clarity, the best comeback came to mind, like arguing in the shower by yourself, and to this day, I could only wish to be able to recreate the moment. Smiling, I threw his words right back at him in his face. Free speech. The others at the table were laughing as I threw away the rest of my lunch and left the break room. My heart was beating too fast from the weird adrenaline rush I got, and I spent the rest of my break in the back of concessions until it was time to clock back in. I think the conversation was what sparked Luke's hatred of me. Ever since then, he would glare at me whenever I walked by, would dump the trash from his bin when we were sweeping the floors for me to pick up, and generally was a jerk. His behavior kept getting worse. He would threaten to fight people. He was a short potato of a boy, so no one was really scared. Argue, say rude, passive-aggressive, or downright hateful things, and was just generally a jerk. At some point, during a shift I wasn't there, he cornered the girl he had been eyeing and kept verbally harassing her to the point that she hid in the manager's office where he couldn't get to her. She was a sweet and loyal girl and a friend, and she and her boyfriend could be described with the phrase puppy love and had been together for a long time. The boyfriend was angry when she texted the group chat about what had happened and wanted to get Luke fired. However, people were hesitant about this, saying that the managers wouldn't want to because he had claimed discrimination and that he hadn't done anything blatantly wrong. Then another one of the employees made a suggestion. Luke was incompetent. We all knew this. Why not make the manager see it too? Revenge time. It wasn't hard to do since Luke would tend to do himself in the foot. When possible, we'd point out to managers when reviewing the cameras in the halls about him dumping his trash can when sweeping onto the ground in front of patrons. When he was using his language during the break, a text would be sent and someone would lead a manager to him to be caught. He rarely cleaned up, was rude and loud, and the incident with the girl didn't help his case. It still wasn't enough, and week after week, his name was on the schedule. Then my opportunity came. See, at the cinema, there's a position called point, aka the ticket taker that lets you into the theater area. It's the second most dreaded position, the first being self-serve cleanup, as you have to stand in place and interact with customers at a rapid-fire pace, smiling and listening for theaters to be called at the same time. When the night ends, the last person on point has to close and clean the self-serve stations. Today, to my initial dread, Luke and I were both on point. The entire time, Luke would leave his station and pace the lobby, toward me, then back, not even sweeping the ground as he went. He wasn't supposed to leave point and had to walk around customers to get back to his podium to help them. He was told off by a manager once or twice for this, but he continued his antics anyway. Then, as things slowed down, one of the managers approached me and told me we were going down to 1 point, one person at the center rather than at both entrances, and that I'd have to explain to Luke how to close point before I went back to help clean concessions. It had to be this way since I had already taken the sanitation test and Luke had yet to do so and therefore wasn't allowed behind concessions. When I finished closing my point, I walked over to Luke and told him to move his podium to the center so he could take closing point. He did, though scowling at me. When he was set, I began to explain. Me. So you'll be closing point tonight after the last movie starts. You'll need to go to the… Luke. Go away. Me. What? Luke. I don't need your help, so don't talk to me. But I need to teach you how to close point. I don't care. Shut up. I know you don't like me, but this is work. You need to… No, I don't want your help. Just shut up. But… Buzz off. Don't talk to me. At this point, I was beyond upset. I was furious. I was trying to help, even after how he had acted, how he treated everyone here. I didn't care what he said in the break room, but it shouldn't affect work. This was ridiculous. I must have snapped or something because I complied, walking away, saying, Fine, I don't care. Don't ever talk to me again. Luke. Hey, I said… Me, waving a hand over my shoulder. Don't talk to me ever again. I went behind concessions to help where he couldn't reach me. I don't know when, but I started crying out of frustration and one of my friends came and hugged me, bringing me to a corner to cool down. I don't get angry often, and when I do, it makes me scared. I was just sick of his antics, sick of the way he spoke to me, just sick of his attitude. I'm not sure how long I sat back there, but soon enough, that same friend came and waved me to the front of concessions. I wiped my face and walked out, and he pointed to point. There was Luke, being instructed by the manager on how to close point, and the manager did not look happy with him. Arms folded, frowning, flat tone, everything spoke of irritation. My friend said they had already explained that Luke refused my help when the manager asked them what was going on, as point can be seen and heard from almost the entire lobby. Seeing the scene lifted my spirits a bit, and I was able to end the night relatively easy. The next weekend, when the schedule came out, I didn't even have to check my email. It was posted in the group text, specifically the section with Luke's name. It was blacked out. If he had quit, his name would have been removed, but the fact it was blacked out meant it was a sudden event. Luke had been fired. I'm not sure what it was that they fired him for anymore, but considering we were always low on staff and they had to worry about discrimination, I'm guessing there were enough complaints that they had to fire him. I'd like to think that last interaction I had with him was the final nail in the coffin, but I was just glad to see him go more than anything. I heard he worked at a common fast food place for a while, but ended up getting McFired from there too. Good luck in life, Luke. You weren't missed. Am I the jerk for talking to my wife's boss about her being overworked? My wife has been putting in 10 to 14-hour days chained to her computer for the past 2 to 3 weeks, through weekends as well. Edit. To clarify, the last 2 to 3 weeks have been 100+ hour weeks. The whole year has been bad, with lots of lost weekends and working over vacations. Wasn't able to take any days off for the holidays either. She's been screaming about her job, how she wants to quit, how it's ridiculous she's working so hard without any break. There have been multiple tear-filled days. I've been walking on eggshells, doing everything I can to help around the house and get her anything she wants, but I'm on edge constantly, watching out for an explosion. Today, working through the weekend again, she was screaming about other people she worked with messing her up, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I texted her boss. Edit. We work at the same company, and I'm semi-friendly with him already. And I said, 1. There are limits for human beings. And 2. This kind of thing can't happen again next year. He agreed and said he'd try to help. Either way, he did a crap job of keeping me out of his conversation with her about limits today. So she found out I'd messaged him ASAP. Edit. Yup, that's me complaining about getting caught red-handed. Now she's telling me that it was extremely wrong of me to message her boss to say that she can't handle her job, which I didn't say, and it's going to set her career back years. Says she can't ever trust me anymore to talk about work or how she's feeling. Generally threw me in the doghouse. Am I the jerk here? I honestly don't know. I can't stand to see her that strung out by work, but did I cross the line too far? Edit. There's more details in the comments, but I realized almost as soon as I posted how much of a jerk I am. Reddit is good for perspective, even if it's sometimes harsh. Let's be honest, I needed the harsh this time. I talked to my wife this morning, apologized, and she asked me to apologize to her boss and never speak to him again. Her boss was cool about the moment of weakness, said he understood, and that he would not let it affect how he treated my wife at work. All is certainly not forgiven, but we'll work through it one step at a time. You're the jerk. I don't know what field your wife works in, but women often have to fight a lot harder for promotions and raises than men do. You get to hear her stress, but I'm sure she plays it off as being totally cool and collected to her coworkers. What you did is essentially tell her boss that she cannot handle the workload, and it's not your place to do that, even a little bit. If her anger and stress at home is an issue for you, that's something you both need to communicate about with each other. You should never be messing with her other relationships without her permission, especially not her work relationships. You've shown her that she cannot express her emotions to you and expect them to remain private. So how is she supposed to be vulnerable with you in the future? Let's be honest, he might have single-handedly tanked her career at the office, and depending on her industry and how small and specialized it is, he may have completely ended her career. You're the jerk. The 1950s called and they need you back. How could you possibly think this is okay? Not only are you a jerk, you violated your wife's trust and a sacred confidence. Things aren't looking good for you here. You could cost her job at the worst and any future promotions or raises for the future. Wow. You're the jerk. Getting in touch with her boss like that sends so many implicit messages that your wife is unable to express or stand up for herself, that it's likely to be extremely embarrassing at the very least and career damaging at the worst. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for kicking out one of my bridesmaids for showing up in the wrong dress? My 23 female wedding was back on Saturday, December 31st, and I'm still getting backlash from this, so I want to know if I was the jerk. In the country I live in, it's currently winter, and we get a fair amount of snow, so my wedding was a winter-themed wedding. The color theme was forest green and gold. My dress was obviously white, and I chose the color of my bridesmaids' dresses to be forest green as well. My maid of honor's dress was black, and everyone was to wear gold accessories. I have this friend, we'll call her Kat, that I asked to be one of my bridesmaids. When we went dress shopping and I told them the color theme I was going for, Kat immediately expressed that she thought forest green was a bad choice. She said she thinks it's not a flattering color and that I should choose something different and more girly. I said no, because my wedding was winter themed and I thought the color would go perfect with the theme. She suggested a pink, blue, even a red. I said no, but thanks for your opinion. She found out my maid of honor's dress was black and asked if she could wear black too. I said no, only my maid of honor is wearing black. I paid for all of the dresses. Fast forward to wedding day, everyone's getting their hair and makeup done, and Kat shows up 30 minutes late holding a bag that looked like it had a dress inside. I asked her what this was for. She told me it was for later at the reception if she got uncomfortable and wanted to change after pictures. I was like, okay, cool. So fast forward, we're all dressed and walking down the stairs because the ceremony is beginning in 30 minutes and we were going to take some pictures before. Kat is the last person to come down and she's wearing a black dress. At the time, I was preoccupied taking pictures with my parents, but my maid of honor came over to me and made me aware of the situation. I confronted Kat and asked her what was going on. She said she hates her bridesmaid dress as the color is ugly and makes her look gross, so she's wearing black. I told her to please go back and change. She refused and started walking away from me. I said I'm going to ask her one more time, and if she doesn't oblige, I'm calling security and kicking her out. She began yelling at me to buzz off. I called security and asked them to please escort her out. She started making a big scene, yelling how I'm such a jerk, that I can't force her to wear the other dress, and that I'm a horrible, inconsiderate friend. The wedding went on, and it was truly amazing. Ever since the wedding, Kat has been blowing up my phone with texts, saying some really nasty things and asking for the money back she spent on the black dress, since it was a waste and she didn't even get to wear it. I had to block her number. Some of my other bridesmaids have been giving me crap, saying that it was a little harsh kicking her out and embarrassing her like that, and that maybe I should give her the money back. Am I the jerk for kicking her out? Not the jerk. She embarrassed herself. She agreed to wear the dress you picked out and then deceitfully planned to change at the last moment in the hope that you'd just let her get away with it. She knew that you would tell her no. Think of being in a wedding as like playing a part in a play or a ballet or something. You get cast as bridesmaid, so you wear the costume that the artistic director has picked out for bridesmaids to wear. If you don't want to wear the costume, don't be in the show. But you can't just show up on opening night and say, "I didn't like your costume choice, so I'm going to wear the same costume as this other character instead." You will address me by my new name. I once worked for the second most toxic man I've ever known. This was a small business of him, the owner, myself, and my long-suffering colleague. So he was in complete control with no one to report to. My boss was an absolute man-child who would launch into hours-long freakouts over the smallest inconvenience, and then as soon as his problem was solved, would act frustrated and sulky that we weren't all celebrating his victory. He would have these tantrums several times a week. Our shop was on a high street. I felt bad for our business neighbors having to put up with it. It's only now, years later, I remember we had student flats above us as well. When my boss wasn't freaking out, he would also frequently get hyper and giddy and make fun of us, lost in a fit of giggles while calling us names. Or he would decide that some new form of honor should be bestowed on him, like we should be made to call him Sir or Master or Darth. Seriously, imagine a man that has never in his life held a stick or pole without swinging it around making lightsaber noises. One day, he decided that we were to call him Daddy Cool. We argue and resist, and oh for goodness sake at him, but he is insistent that we are to refer to him henceforth as Daddy Cool. I step away from the insanity to take my lunch in the basement. I chill a little, and my own anger settles to weary resignation. Dangerous, perilous, weary resignation. I climb the steps from the basement, I burst through the door, and bellow in my stage voice, "Daddy Cool!" Customers are in the shop being tended to by my boss. I ignore them. My colleague crumbles into hysterics, gasping OMG between breaths. "We've run out of XYZ, Daddy Cool. We should order some more of UVW also, Daddy Cool." I address him as Daddy Cool for days until he's like, "Okay, all right, that's enough." Actually, no. I continue to refer to him as Daddy Cool well beyond him begging me to stop, and several more times as necessary over the years when a reminder is necessary. Am I the jerk for asking our friend for my son's toy back? My son, who's 4, slept over at a friend's house last night. This friend's parents were doing my wife and I a huge favor because my wife's father had surgery yesterday and we needed to be there and didn't get home until after midnight. So yes, this story begins with us already in debt to them. Anyway, at nap time today, my son started freaking out because he couldn't find Sleepy Dumbo, his stuffed animal, and he cannot sleep without Sleepy Dumbo. I remembered that when I picked him up, I didn't see Sleepy Dumbo, so I text the mom and dad of the friend. I get no response. My wife is a wreck, so I'm not bothering her with this, but my son is freaking out. So I tell him we'll get in the car and go get Sleepy Dumbo, and he slightly calmed down. So we drive over, and I try to call them both on the way. When we get there, I knock, and we wait a bit with no answer. At this point, my son starts freaking out more because he's afraid something happened to Sleepy Dumbo. I try to reassure him, but he starts crying. I knock again, and the wife of the couple answers. She says that she's working and asks what I want. I explain about Sleepy Dumbo. She again says that she's working, and she says she doesn't have time to look for Dumbo and tells us to come back later. My son starts freaking out more. I ask if we can look. She says she needs to focus. I promise to be fast. She lets me in. We get to his friend's room. Sleepy Dumbo is on the bed. My son gets him, and I hustle us out. I thank the mom, but she's glaring at me. On the way home, he hugs Sleepy Dumbo the whole time. I remind him to be more careful with Sleepy Dumbo in the future, and at home, nap time commences peacefully. About an hour ago, my wife and I both got this text, so I'm going to copy and paste it. I really don't appreciate the way you barged into my house earlier today while I was working. I know you both have a lot going on right now, but the world doesn't revolve around you. My husband and I agreed to do you a favor, but that doesn't mean you get to just walk all over us. In the future, if you call and we don't answer, that means it isn't a good time to come over." I felt very embarrassed and guilty after reading that. My wife, however, is furious. She called the wife of the other couple some indelicate names. I'm really grateful to them for agreeing to babysit for us, and I accept that I am to blame for forgetting Sleepy Dumbo the first time. I don't know if asking to come in and get him is quite a big deal as she's making it out to be though, and my wife is upset. I don't know how much of that is misplaced fear for her dad though. Am I a jerk, or was this just an unfortunate situation? If someone doesn't answer calls and you show up anyway and they politely explain it's not a good time, it's really rude to insist. You're the jerk. You're the jerk for just showing up. I know your son needed his toy, but sometimes you have to teach your kid that you don't always get what you want right away, and you have to learn to be patient. She clearly was in the middle of something work-wise and didn't want to be disturbed. Yeah, this seems like a perfect teaching moment for the 4-year-old. I know Dumbo is really important to you. You're sad that you left him behind. As soon as their parents say it's okay, we'll go pick it up. Remember these feelings and pay more attention next time you bring Dumbo somewhere. When I brought my 4-year-old to school this morning and was getting on his gloves for recess, he started a fit because he wanted a different pair of gloves. I told him if it was important to him to pick out his gloves every day, he absolutely should. Tomorrow, when we're about to go, I'll remind him to pack his backpack himself so he can choose the gloves. Fit over, and now my big boy gets to pack his own backpack and get that extra level of responsibility. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk or not? Please let us know. Be careful when you complain to Little Caesars. When I was in high school, I had a part-time job at Little Caesars working the register, handing pizzas to customers. It was in a rougher part of town, so there were plenty of scary and weird customer interactions. However, there's one that was intensely satisfying. On a random weekday, some woman came in and ordered a pizza with a wide variety of toppings. Completely normal so far. She leaves and comes back 10 minutes later to pick up her pie and leaves. She comes back another 5 minutes later with the pizza, saying that the toppings fell off when she was trying to eat it, called us lazy, and demanded that we remake it. I guess she had never had a pizza before. So I take the pizza to the back, explain the situation to the guy making the pizzas, and tell him to put the toppings under the cheese. Little did I know this would create the most disgusting looking pizza I had ever witnessed. All of the sausage, veggies, pepperonis, and whatever else was completely covered by the cheese, but could be seen slightly because melted cheese is a little translucent. It looked like the cheese had subtly turned different parts of brown, green, orange from grease underneath, and wasn't pretty and smooth like pizza usually is. It was lumpy, like chunky throw-up. It was absolutely vile, and I was counting down the minutes for her to return. Pretty soon after the pie was finished, what I assumed to be her husband came inside to pick it up. As per standard procedure at my store, I opened the box to show him the final product. My creation, my monster. The poor man looked absolutely appalled and heartbroken. He asked me in a very disappointed voice, "What did she say to you guys?" And I simply explained to him that because the pizza's toppings fell off when she tried to eat it, we simply put them under the cheese. He just apologized and left with the pie. Not gonna lie, I kind of wish the woman had picked it up because I'm sure we would have gotten a better reaction, but it still warms my heart to know that she probably ate it. Neighbor goes full-on Karen after I kept her Amazon package that was delivered to my address. 2 weeks ago, Amazon dropped off a package on my doorstep. I left it there and I went to the store. When I came back, it was still there. I took it inside, called Amazon customer service. After being asked for and giving the associate the name, tracking number, and contents of said package, I was told that their policy was to either keep it or trash it. I kept a part of it, threw the rest away. Last night, the owner of the package knocked on my door loudly. I answered it, and she immediately accused me of stealing her stuff. I apologized and asked what was she talking about. I had completely forgotten about it at this point. She mentions that she had a camera in her car and it recorded Amazon dropping off the item. Plus, they take photos of the home number, and she was contemplating getting the police involved. I remembered the items and asked about the specific one. She confirmed it was hers, then went into a story about Amazon not replacing the items or refunding her money, and I apologized again and explained the situation, my actions, and what I was told by Amazon. And since I still had one part of her package, I gave it to her. She left after repeating her concerns and assumptions about our thievery. Today, literally 30 minutes ago, I learned that she previously took her complaints to the only neighbor that I know and am friendly with in the complex, bothering him at his job for over 10 minutes, calling my family thieves and threatening police action. So, am I the jerk for keeping and trashing someone else's property? Edit. The individual unit or apartment number was not on the package, just her name and the townhouse, condo, and complex address itself. There's no manager office, no lobby, no communal area, no communal mailbox. It's a townhouse/condo type situation. I also didn't know her before last night. I don't exactly speak to the neighbors except for mainly one. Not the jerk. There was no communal area or leasing office to put it in per OP. 2. You called Amazon. 3. She waited 2 weeks. Clearly it wasn't that important to her. Not the jerk. It's amazing how few people in this sub understand how Amazon works. You aren't responsible to do their job. You have no duty to track down the actual recipient and get them the package. It's unlikely that the person who came to your door hadn't already received a refund or a new item and was just there to get the item you were told to keep. If she knew the item was at your place, which she clearly knew, why did she wait so long to knock on your door? As a former Amazon customer service rep, I'm going to say not the jerk. This is exactly Amazon's policy. If a package is delivered to the wrong address, the person is told that they should trash it or keep it. And when the person who should have received it calls, they'll be eligible for refund or replacement, depending on the product. The neighbor is full of it. Amazon took care of her. That's 100% company policy. They're not going to refuse to make it right when it's clear it was delivered to the wrong address. Also, the Amazon rep could see who it should have gone to, but is not allowed to tell OP to protect the original customer's privacy. The neighbor came after OP to try to get double what she ordered, the original and the replacement. Also, if she has it on camera, why did she wait 2 weeks to ask about it? OP did the right thing by calling Amazon about the mistaken delivery. It is unreasonable to expect someone in OP's situation to take responsibility for Amazon's error. The neighbor received a refund or replacement. That's their policy. Neighbor is the jerk here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know. I can't even tell you how many times Amazon has delivered the wrong stuff to our house. We always take it to the house that it actually belongs to, but that's because we can see their address on it. Am I the jerk for wanting to talk to my daughter's new teacher about being nicer to the kids? My daughter's preschool hired a new teacher, or teacher's aide, who's in their early 20s, female, earlier this year. My daughter adores this teacher, and my wife, who is also a teacher, speaks highly of her. We just had a baby, so I've been taking care of drop-off and pickup lately, and I've been able to form my own opinion of this teacher. In my opinion, she messes with the kids too much. These are all examples that I've seen. For Christmas, we got every teacher a box of chocolates from a small shop near the school. The shop wrapped the boxes, and they have the name of the shop on the wrapping paper. Everyone knows what it is by looking at it. My daughter ran in yelling, "We got you chocolate," and the teacher said, "Abby, it was supposed to be a surprise." She still hugged my daughter and thanked her, but I felt that remark was unnecessary. Another time, I picked my daughter up towards the end of snack time. My daughter came up to the teacher and asked for more snacks. Teacher said, "Abby, you already ate all of our snacks. If I give you more, we won't have anything to eat tomorrow. You're about to go home and have dinner anyways." In my opinion, the first two sentences were very unnecessary. The last one just happened on Friday. Pickup ends at 4:30, and I'm guessing the teacher leaves at 4:45. I called the school and said that I was going to be late for pickup, and I got there at around 4:45. When I got there, my daughter was with a boy whose parents had been there for 20 minutes and he was refusing to leave. My daughter was getting her stuff, and I saw the teacher give the boy a spray bottle, a rag, and gloves and say, "Jack, if you want to stay, you're going to have to clean the tables, then vacuum. I have to go home, and your mom can't wait forever." She went to the closet, got her stuff, and started walking to the door. His mom also started to walk away. The boy dropped the cleaning supplies, started crying, and ran for his mom when the teacher made it to the door and his mom was out of sight. In my opinion, there had to have been a better way to get him to go than scaring him like that. I get that she's joking, but these kids are 3 and 4 and don't get it. My daughter has never admitted to this teacher making her upset, but I still don't like how she talks to my daughter or the other kids. My wife and I were talking about the school, and I said that I wanted to talk to the teacher about being nicer to my daughter and the other kids. My wife rolled her eyes at me and said that I'm starting to sound like a certain parent at her school that she and the other teachers can't stand, and that if I insist that everyone coddles our daughter, then she's going to have a hard time when she's older. Am I the jerk for not liking the teacher and wanting her to be nicer? You're the jerk. The teacher sounds perfectly nice, and correcting kids is part of her job. Wow. So this teacher, who's an expert on childcare, is helping guide children to be good little humans who have empathy towards others, making sure to save snacks for everyone else the next day and be helpful. What a monster. Instead of saying no to children's requests, she's telling them the answer is no and then gently redirecting them. And you think it's mean-spirited joking? Yet somehow your wife and your daughter love this teacher. You're the jerk, man, and it's clear it's your wife that does the bulk of the childcare. You wouldn't even know anything about this teacher if your wife hadn't been occupied with the birth of your new baby. Why don't you stop and think about that for a while? You're the jerk. You're making something out of nothing. You're making a big deal out of something kids can understand. Eat food today, there's none left tomorrow. You're close to dinner time. As far as the chocolate, that is overreaction. You give gifts. They're supposed to be a surprise. Relax. You're that parent every teacher hates. They have a hard enough job as it is. Yes, you're the jerk. Get some thicker skin. Your wife likes the teacher. Your kid likes the teacher. If she were mean to your daughter would feel that. You're not doing your kid or your wife any favors here. I offered to help my wife with the dishes, and she totally flipped out on me. My wife and I, who are both 26, both work 4 days a week. I work 12-hour shifts and she works 8-hour shifts. She would work more, but our daughter, who is 1, needs to be picked up from daycare. I leave for work before they wake up, and some days I don't get home until after our daughter has gone to bed. This week, our daughter's daycare provider was sick, so my wife took the week off of work to care for her. I worked an extra day to make up for her lost income, so it all worked out fine, or so I thought. She seemed stressed still, so I asked her what was wrong. She broke down, saying that she's struggling with balancing work, caring for our daughter throughout the week, and keeping our house clean and cooking, etc. I responded calmly by saying that I can't miss work or reduce hours. We simply cannot afford it. She responded by saying she knows that, but it's overwhelming for her, and the house chores are piling up. I told her 90% of the problems with messiness could be solved if she picked up after herself, if she just put the used butter knives in the sink after she was done, and rinsed bottles, cookware, etc. I'd be happy to do the dishes when I get home from work. I'll even put them away after. But I do not want to play scavenger hunt and look around the house for things to wash. She did not respond to me after I said that, other than a quiet okay before going to console our daughter who woke up early from her nap. She still seemed upset with me, so I vented to my coworker about what happened. He says I was being a jerk because I didn't even listen to what she wanted. I feel like I was perfectly reasonable. Am I the jerk? You're not the jerk for offering to help with the dishes. You're the jerk for telling her that 90% of the problems with messiness could be solved if she picked up after herself. Like, what were you thinking? Your title was misleading. Either you did that on purpose in a weak attempt to garner sympathy, or you are actually that dense. I suspect it's the former. Did you see where he answered about the chores he does at home? He takes out the garbage and does the dishes a couple times a week. He basically offered to continue doing what he already does, which is next to nothing. I'm sorry, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't call dishes and trash household chores. That's less than the bare minimum to survive as a human being. You're the jerk, OP. If you don't want to go on a scavenger hunt because it's a lot of work walking things back to the sink, rinsing things out, etc., do you think it's possible that it's also a lot of work for her? Especially if she's exhausted and being pulled away from these tasks by the needs of your kid. Doing all those little tasks as they come up during the day might be less overwhelming for some people than doing them all at once, but it still adds up in terms of time and energy when you're also trying to juggle other things. Plus, it sounds like she was venting and or leading up to a suggestion about how to fix things, and you thought it was a good idea to insult her and tell her to do more work when she's already telling you she's overwhelmed. You're the jerk. You took from that whole thing the dishes? Clearly, it's about a lot more than butter knives in the wrong place. How 90% of her problems are her own fault is stupid. I bet 99% that she carries the entire mental load of the household and has baby brain. On days that you work, I imagine she's the one that's basically the sole parent and probably on days that you don't work, she does the lion's share. Exactly. She has 3 jobs: childcare, household, and her actual job. OP says he works more hours, but that's BS. Calculate the work she does in a way where they'd have to pay for a babysitter and a cleaner to do those jobs. She contributes way more, and OP needs to get his head out of his rear. Not the jerk. Crazy idea here, I know, but what if he's right? Look, leaving dirty dishes laying around the house is flat out disgusting, no matter how many of you claim that it's normal. If his wife is incapable of at least taking her dirty dishes to the sink, let alone giving them a quick scrub the way my husband and I do, then I honestly feel sorry for this man. Validate her feelings for leaving dirty dishes laying around and being filthy? Give me a break. I'm a woman myself, but I'm so sick of you people bashing the husbands in these stories simply because they're men. Just reverse the roles, and none of you would be calling his wife the jerk if she told her husband to stop leaving dirty dishes around the house. You'd all be telling her that she isn't a maid and she's 100% right, and that her husband needs to stop being a slob. You're not his mommy, he needs to wash his own dishes. What a man-child. I saw one story where most of you actually sided with the husband instead of the wife. How on earth was this possible? Well, let's see. The husband was a Major League Baseball player who hired a maid, a personal chef, a nanny, and wanted to hire a night nurse to watch the baby at night so his wife, a stay-at-home mom, wouldn't have to deal with it. All this, and his wife still couldn't stop complaining about how hard it was being a parent, and that he needed to do more to help her with the baby. At least now we know what it takes for you people to side with the dad. Unfortunately, most men won't get to be professional athletes making millions a year and hiring maids, nannies, chefs, and night nurses so their stay-at-home mom wives can be lazy. So Reddit will never cut those guys an ounce of slack. Saddest thing is, it's only a matter of time until she leaves him and takes him to the cleaners for everything he's worth due to his talent and dedication, something she never had to work for and instead just reaps the benefits of. So glad I found a husband who, like myself, has common sense, and our 3 kids are being raised to be decent people who have the ability to use their brains, unlike most of you. Edit. Oh, look, I'm being downvoted by everyone. Big surprise there. If I wanted upvotes, I would have left a comment about OP being a monster who doesn't deserve his wife and how she deserves so much better. I would have shared a sob story about how I know what it's like to live with a monster who refuses to validate your feelings and who asks you not to be a lazy slob. That's how you get upvotes on Reddit. You just make yourself out to be a perpetual victim, then all these other losers will relate to you and upvote your crap. I don't want upvotes on Reddit. I don't want you people to relate to me. The more you all disagree with someone, the more common sense they have. Ouch. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If you left dirty dishes around the house, Reddit boy, To be honest, I don't think I'd be with you. That's really gross. Check with your boss about your availability? Sure. I'm the HR manager of a medium-sized company based out of the United States. We're in an industry that relies heavily on most people having an assistant to manage their schedule, handle their phones, etc. I had someone tell me on a Wednesday that their assistant was leaving. Let's call the assistant Andy. I talked to Andy, who said his last day would be the next Friday. It's less than 2 weeks' notice, which is annoying but not illegal, and I understand that things happen, so I'm not gonna put up a stink about it. Andy was a nightmare for the next week and a half. When trying to schedule interviews for replacements, he kept insisting on prioritizing certain candidates because he wanted to do it his way. He wouldn't follow our recruiting protocol and complained to his boss that we were pushing back when we most certainly weren't. But the worst part was scheduling the transition meeting/exit interview. At my company, our policy is to conduct a transition meeting and exit interview together. I do these meetings, and they're usually pretty harmless. I'll give the employee their final paycheck, as required by law, tell them about how to sign up for benefits after they leave if they want, COBRA, share info on porting over their retirement, etc. After going over all of the transition information, I'll conduct a brief exit interview, asking them about how we can improve the working experience, etc. I always tell them that this exit interview is for their benefit as a final means of giving feedback to us, but I also make it clear that they don't have to share anything they don't want to. All in all, these meetings usually take between 15 to 20 minutes. At first, I had a time on hold with Andy to do an exit interview on his last day. He then emailed me and said he wouldn't be able to do an exit interview because his priority was wrapping things up for his boss. Let's call him Ben. I let him know that I needed to be able to give him his final paycheck and additional information. He told me to just leave the paycheck on his desk. By this point, I'm fed up with him because his emails are incredibly rude, so I CC my boss, the head of HR. Let's call her Carol. I tell Andy that there's more than just the final paycheck that I need to share, and that I'd be more than happy to share more about our company policies in our meeting. I also said he's welcome to reach out to anyone on the HR team to ask. Andy ignores my email. I follow up the next morning. I run into him in the elevator and he literally refuses to acknowledge me, not even to say good morning or smile awkwardly. He ignores this email too. By the afternoon, I'm over it. I tell Carol, who calls Andy. Carol says, "Hey, I heard from the Invisibond that she's having a hard time getting a hold of you to schedule an exit interview." He responds that he's just so busy wrapping things up for his boss and he really appreciates us following up, but no, he won't be available. And if there are any issues, we can reach out to his boss. Cue the malicious compliance. Carol lets him know that this isn't optional and that it'll only be 15 minutes. But if he's so busy, we can certainly reach out to Ben to make sure there's time carved out. He stutters and isn't able to make a coherent sentence. Ben says we don't have to do that. Carol says, "It's okay. We understand the need to make sure Ben is on board, so we'll call Ben on his cell," and she hangs up. We then call Ben and she tells him, "I'm so sorry to do this, but Andy let us know he won't be available for an exit interview. Could you make sure he has time for it? We're trying to schedule something and are having a hard time." He asks how long and she says 15 minutes. He says, "That's ridiculous. He should have 15 minutes. I'll call him and take care of it right now." Carol thanks him and we continue to have our meeting. A few minutes later, Andy comes by and is fuming. He demands that we do the exit interview at that moment. I calmly tell him that there are important documents I need to prepare, which is why we're trying to schedule time. Carol then calmly tells him that there are policies and procedures to follow when you leave a company. The assistant says he doesn't appreciate us going to Ben and that he felt really disrespected. Carol gently reminds him that he said it was okay to check in with Ben and we're glad it's a priority now. And how does 10 a.m. sound tomorrow? Andy stormed down the hallway and we had our exit interview the next day at 10 a.m. Best part? It would have been a brief 15 minutes, but then Andy got argumentative and we went overtime. Am I the jerk for refusing to drop my ex-husband's last name? My ex-husband, who I'll call by a fake name, Tony, and I broke up 2 years ago after 26 years of marriage. We have 4 kids together. Due to the stupidity of the time and social pressure, I added my husband's last name to my name. So all my documents like identification, driver's license, passport, all credit cards, voter registration card have his last name at the end. We ended amicably and even more so due to the circumstances, and we divorced. Honestly, it would suck to have to change everything, go to government agencies, pay for everything new, go to the bank and change everything, so I didn't want to take out his last name. But I introduced myself by my maiden name, only in the documents is it this name. Tony is currently engaged to a guy and they're going to get married in the next year. The situation that happened was, our son and his family decided to travel and invited me. He asked for my ID to make the reservations. A few days later, me, Tony, and fiancé were at my grandson's party. Our son said jokingly in the conversation circle that he couldn't believe that until today I hadn't changed my last name. I laughed, saying that I was too lazy to rush to change everything that has this name on it. Tony started to ask if I really hadn't changed my name, if I didn't think that being engaged to someone else isn't the best time to change it, and he insisted that it was weird of me. I just replied, "Unless you can go in my place, spend hours and hours in lines, pay hundreds for it, I won't do it in the near future." We stopped talking and the party flowed smoothly. Later, he called me and said I was acting weird and being a jerk by refusing to change the name, which he said was uncomfortable. I asked our son, and he said he understands my side of not wanting to do this, but he understands Tony's side of being uncomfortable with his ex using his last name after the divorce. So I asked for an outside opinion. Am I the jerk? I don't intend to never change, I just don't want to go through it right now. Not the jerk. If having his ex share a last name with him bothers him that much, then maybe he should take his fiance's name after they marry. Not the jerk. After 26 years, that's your name. This. My mom and dad were married 24 years. She didn't want to change her name back, and now they've been divorced 29 years. My dad never made a big deal out of it. She can choose what name to use. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. It's normal for someone to not change their last name after a divorce. I know women who have gotten remarried and didn't change their name even then because they wanted the same name as their kids. Not the jerk. I'm kind of puzzled by Tony being uncomfortable with his ex using his last name. You had the name for 26 years. Did Tony not consider it your name during that time? Was he just loaning it to you on sufferance? There are plenty of perfectly good reasons to keep his last name. Your kids have that last name. All your documents are in that name. Maybe you've used that name in your career. And yes, it is expensive and time-consuming to change it. Daughter dyed her hair badly and refuses to go to school. Can't believe this is happening, but here we go. Daughter, who's 14, has always been naturally blonde. However, the last few months, brown hair has been coming through her roots. She asked us if she can dye it earlier this month. We said yes, but only if it's done professionally. An appointment is booked for the 8th of February. Very popular salon with a good reputation, meaning long wait times. But if it's being done right. Reason for this is both her sister, and my wife have very sensitive scalps. Last time older daughter used an at-home kit, it went badly wrong. Doctor's kind of wrong. Youngest daughter was happy with this and agreed to wait, but this weekend went out with her friend and bought an at-home kit, dyeing her hair at her friend's house without any adult assistance. Well, now it's orange. We offered to buy a brown or black kit to cover it until her appointment, but she screamed she is a blonde, not brunette, and hasn't really left her room since. She's refusing to go to school until we fix it. I said I don't have a magic hair fixing spell, and the choice is go dark for 3 weeks or put up with the orange color. We phoned the salon, but they cannot move up the appointment, but will contact in case of a cancellation. So Reddit, am I the jerk for sending my daughter to school with self-inflicted orange hair? To be clear, as it's been mentioned a few times, the brown or brunette option was a temporary color, not a permanent. It would wash out in a few weeks anyway. We've tried at other salons as well, however they have similar wait times. One can fit us in earlier, the 25th of January, but honestly, their Google reviews are a very mixed bag, 2 stars out of 5, so we're not overly confident with that one. Edit. Thanks for all the advice. We won't be dyeing it again, and we'll try the purple/blue shampoo instead, hoping to tone it down. Also, wife just got off the phone with a salon who can get her in this Friday, so she'll have to suck it up for the rest of the week. It's going to cost us nearly twice as much as the normal salon, so guess who will be doing extra chores for a while? Not the jerk. And your daughter just learned an important lesson about instant gratification. It's not always gratifying. So she had everything set up for her to get it done, yet she was impatient, gave in, and dyed it on her own? Not the jerk. Your daughter messed up. If your kids can't behave, they don't belong in a movie theater. Some parents really insist that kids will be kids and can't be disciplined at all, and it's not true. They're just lazy parents, or selfish. In the off chance you do have a kid with behavioral issues beyond your control, then you have to make some personal sacrifices. It's not everyone else's problem. If you know your kid can't sit quietly through a movie, then why take them to a movie theater? I went to see a kids movie recently and fully expected some level of craziness. It wasn't like for little kids or anything, but it was an animated film. I know that kids will make some kind of noise. However, I was set by a family that was acting like they were in their own living room the entire film. Kids running all over the place, standing on chairs, invading people's spaces, talking, yelling, singing, screaming, etc. And the parents did nothing. No shushing, no reprimanding. Just ignored them and watched the movie. So happy for them that they deal with that BS enough at home to be desensitized. But I'm happily child-free and didn't pay $12 for a ticket and $16 for snacks to have a horrible experience and a migraine by the end of it. The kids were old enough to know better if they had been taught better, but I'm assuming they weren't. The theater was full of kids who were behaving themselves and weren't ruining the experience for everyone else. When there are kids in a theater acting that way, it doesn't just mess it up for the adults, it also distracts for all of the kids who are actually behaving. I don't buy this excuse that kids will just be kids and that there's nothing parents can do about it. At the very least, you can choose to keep your kids at home if they don't know how to act in public. I feel like some parents behave this way because they believe that no one is going to say anything. What was I supposed to do? interrupt the movie and bother people around us by confronting them in the moment, or missed parts of the movie myself by going and getting a manager and pulling a Karen? They do this crap counting on the fact that most people will say nothing, or think that everyone else around them has the same ideology that kids will be kids, and that because they're kids, no one should be bothered. Flat out entitlement. Not my fault you messed up by having them. Edit. Okay, I'm not checking the updates on this anymore. Some of y'all are taking it a bit too far, acting like you have some personal stake in the matter. I chose the least confrontational route possible and just wanted to complain online and then move on. I have no clue why any of you care whether or not I complained to the staff and got it fixed in the moment. I did not want to be in a confrontational situation at the time, and I don't have to explain myself, but feel free to read my comments on this thread for clarification. Thanks. Should have gotten theater personnel involved and gotten them kicked out. OP. Like I said in the post, I would have had to miss parts of the movie myself, but I didn't mention that the theater staff was almost entirely teenagers, and I kind of just didn't want to put them in a confrontational situation, honestly. If I saw a single adult in there, maybe I would have considered it more. Last time I had to get two little jerks kicked from a movie theater, the manager offered me 2 free vouchers to use to see the movie again. But guess what? You have the great little thing in your pocket called a phone. Call the theater, ask for the manager. Tell him what theater you're in and that some jerks are letting their kids run wild and ruin the movie for everyone else. Then sit back and watch both shows. Am I the jerk for preventing my ex from moving to his home and forcing him to live in a 1-bedroom apartment? I, 40 female, was married to Chris, 42 male, for 15 years. We have 3 kids, Alex, 15 male, Lexi, who's 12 female, and Spencer, who's 9. I filed for divorce 2 years ago because Chris is obsessed with moving to a warmer climate. During lockdown, he began working from home, and by the end of the year, his company decided to give up office space, and now he had the opportunity to live elsewhere. Years ago, we agreed that we would move when we retired. He became obsessed with this idea, and I refused to entertain it until our kids were done with school or I could get my pension. We tried therapy, but he would not compromise, like buying a vacation home. It was full-time in the warmer location or nothing. It got bad enough that it was the only thing he ever focused on. It absolutely destroyed our marriage, and the resentment is strong. He was confident he would get custody of our kids because he makes a significant amount more than me, and his family is pretty wealthy. He was also sure that Alex would want to move with him because he loves the place my ex wants to move to and plans to attend college in that state. He knows I would never be far away from any of my kids and hoped to divide and conquer, and that he would force me to go too. My ex was pretty much laughed out of court by the judge and told he cannot uproot his kids because he wants to live in warmer weather. He wanted custody, but the court looks at the best interest of the kids, and we were ultimately awarded joint legal custody. Now he has to work it out with me since he needs my approval to take the kids, which will never happen. He's tried to pressure Alex, but to our surprise, Alex is not interested in his father's bribes. He went as far as buying a house there and met a local woman about 6 months after we filed. She's pressuring him to move full-time. He can only afford a 1-bedroom apartment in our hometown right now. Our kids don't want to go with him because they have to sleep on an air mattress and pull-out bed, and it's uncomfortable. The best scenario is for our kids to have 2 homes that are comfortable and close by, and I am very aware of this, but still believe it should be in our home state. He wanted to meet for dinner the other night, and I agreed. He presented me with a whole new plan to move, including a brand new home for me, and offered me more alimony than I was awarded, basically the rent he currently pays for the apartment. Additionally, he offered an in-law suite/apartment for my mom to stay in or move in with us. What he presented was better than any scenario he presented when we were married. I could have a much more comfortable life if I agree to these terms. They would be legally binding, but I still shut it down because this is the reason we got divorced. He's arguing that I'm ruining his life, and I think he did that all by himself. He thinks I'm being vindictive, and an outside opinion might be helpful. So, am I the jerk for refusing to move? Edit to add. Someone thought I should include that my youngest has a learning disability and is thriving in his current placement, and I do not want to remove him from his school or his teacher. Not the jerk. And honestly, it speaks volumes about both of you and is fundamentally the reason why you're not the jerk, that you point out that this is the reason why we got divorced. This is the crux of the whole thing, and what your ex doesn't understand, that it isn't about the money. He thinks you're being vindictive and holding out for more, so he keeps offering more until it becomes almost grotesque, How obvious it is that he thinks he just needs to buy you and your kids with the right amount to get what he wants. But he's missing the point completely. This isn't about money or about you being spiteful or vindictive or wanting anything from him. This is about the fact that you have a life where you are. He doesn't see you or the kids as whole humans, just as accessories to be dragged along to wherever he wants to be. But you are whole, autonomous humans. You have invested of yourselves where you live now. You don't just have a job, you have friends, a life, favorite places to spend time. And yes, you can theoretically make new friends, find new favorite places, but you don't want to. You never wanted to. He did. You like the friends you have where you are, the life you have now, and so do your kids. So why would all of you just give that up at any price just because he wants a different one? Why is his dream, as a single person, more important than all of your established lives? He needs to get his priorities straight. He's not the center of the universe. You all do not need to revolve around him like the sun, and you're not the jerk for understanding that. My friend and his fiancée are demanding to live with me. To me, this is simple that I've done nothing wrong, but some people are saying I'm the jerk, so I'd like the opinion of this fine sub. So I'm 28, male, and my friend Tom is 29, and his fiancée, Kat, is 31. Recently, Tom and Kat have come into financial issues and are unable to pay for their rent. As it stands, they can either move in with Kat's parents, who live roughly 2 hours away, or they can move in with me until they find another place to rent. Now, they would rather move in with me. I live alone in a 3-bedroom house, so I have the space. It would be easier for them as they can stay near our other friends and close to Tom's work. There's also a lot of parks nearby that Kat can take her dogs to for walks. That's all well and good for them. However, the idea of living with someone, let alone 2 people, does not sit well with me. I have 1 bedroom where I sleep. The other 2 bedrooms are my home office and my library. Furthermore, I love the feeling of coming home to an empty house. Everything is where I left it, and I can properly unwind. Also, living alone makes it easier to bring girls over. So I told Tom and Kat this, and they were not happy. They called me selfish for not sacrificing for them. They said a true friend would help. So I told them the blunt truth. I would be happy to help Tom. He works full-time and would respect my space. But I did not want Kat to live with me. Reasons being, she doesn't work, so she would be in my home much more than me. Her dogs are inside dogs, and I don't want that at all. And I told them that Tom has told me privately he gets frustrated that he comes home from work and still has to prepare dinner and do most of the chores. I told Kat she's lucky she's with someone who tolerates her and loves her, but I'm not like Tom. I'm not dealing with it. Kat breaks down crying at this point and calls me evil. I apologize to Tom and I tell him he knows my stance. This happened late last year. Right now, Tom and Kat are living with Kat's parents still, and I know it's hard for them. My mates know how Kat is and told me I did the right thing. However, people who are close to Kat are saying I'm a terrible person and I put them in a situation which might ruin their relationship. So, am I the jerk for not letting my friend and his fiancée move in? OP stands up for himself, sets boundaries, and gives a Karen a reality check. Let's see what our friends on Reddit have to say about him. I don't think your comments about Kat were appropriate. It's not your relationship, so it's not okay to tell her those kinds of things. The stuff you said about the dogs is fine. What you said about her being home more than you is fine. Questioning her commitment to Tom is not, even if she is a bad fiancé. You don't actually need to give any reason why you want to live alone, which is why the personal comments were even more unnecessary. You're the jerk. I was firmly prepared to say not the jerk until the part where you apparently publicly told them both what Tom had told you privately about Kat. As far as not housing them, that's fine and not what makes you the jerk. But you didn't need to go into every little detail, and especially didn't need to betray Tom's trust like that. Your handling of the situation is what makes you the jerk. You're the jerk. Not for deciding not to rent space to your friends, that's your choice, and you had several valid reasons for not wanting to, specifically these 2, as roommates. But telling Kat that she is the main reason and spelling it all out was unnecessarily harsh. Just tell them you don't want 2 dogs living in your house, and that's enough of a reason, or something else. No need to list one of the person's character flaws, whether they are valid or just as you see them. Everyone sucks here. Sure, it would be convenient for them, but it's ultimately your house, and anyone who expects you to go out of your way to home them is plain wrong. The next time anyone complains, ask them to volunteer their own house since they're so eager to offer up yours. On the other hand, what you said to Kat is excessive. You also shared something Tom told you privately, violating his trust. Not the jerk. Imagine if OP was a female and didn't want her friend and the boyfriend moving in because dude was a lazy slob who didn't work or help with any chores. Would you all be tearing OP apart for not wanting them staying with her if that were the case? Of course not, because Reddit hypocrisy. Everyone sucks here. They should have accepted your no and not tried to guilt you into accepting them to move in. You should not have betrayed your friend's confidence about what he said about his fiancée. I get that you were frustrated by them being pushy, but you didn't need to go to that extent to achieve your goal. You chose the nuclear option because you knew it would end the argument. Now you deal with the fallout. Good rule of thumb. If you're going into a fight with he said, she said, facts as your weapons, you've already chosen poorly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his friend and the fiancé? Please let us know. I'm proud of OP for not being a pushover, and it's a shame how all these little goofballs can't handle the truth. Am I the jerk for prioritizing my parrot over my stepdaughter's wedding? So I'm the owner of a wonderful rescued parrot. She's a wonderful bird, but has a lot of issues due to her former home. I've had her for 3 years, and since then haven't taken any vacations or trips away as it would be too disruptive for her. She distrusts everyone and is very reliant on her routine. I love her deeply, and I'm happy to make sacrifices for her. They are permanent toddlers and very intelligent birds. I met my husband by the time his kids were older. My stepdaughter was 16 at the time. We married when she moved away for college. Nevertheless, I thought we had managed to have a decent relationship until now. My stepdaughter is getting married in March, and naturally, there are a lot of preparations involved. They're wanting a huge traditional wedding, and she's stressed out of her mind. They live out of state, and she invited me recently to come visit for a week to help make wedding plans and spend time with their 2-year-old. I declined, and she insisted to know why, acting very hurt, and I explained the parrot. Well, it all went downhill from there. She caused a massive fuss with her dad, saying she never got a mother figure and I never accepted her as my full-blood daughter, and this is the ultimate snub for a silly animal. That I'm cold and emotionless. I feel really hurt, and I can tell he agrees with her even though he's refusing to take sides. But I don't see why I should be expected to take holiday time off of work to babysit and bond all of a sudden, and I don't see how I'm a monster for this. Am I the jerk here? Edit. Context of our relationship. We don't usually talk at all, and she hasn't visited home in 4 years. Edit 2. Beginning to think it was maybe a mistake posting this, mostly because this is a real and nuanced situation, and Reddit is no place for nuance, and maybe personal relationships shouldn't be judged in the jerk context in the first place, but also because I should be more understanding and a bigger person, regardless of who is or isn't the jerk. Life is too short to be upset and offended. I called my stepdaughter and told her that I understand this is a big moment in her life and she wants someone there to help and support her, and that I'm still willing to help her in any way I can to plan the wedding via Zoom and virtually. We talked a bit, and I asked why she hadn't accepted me reaching out in the past, and she apologized and said she didn't want to accept someone as a stand-in, fake replacement for her biological mom. But now she regrets it and would like a closer relationship, especially seeing how close her significant other is with his mom. We ended the conversation positively, and I'm hoping things can improve going forward. I told her I'm a crazy bird lady and asked her if she still wants a relationship knowing that, and she said that after the wedding, she's willing to travel to visit us if we have room, which we do. I'll leave this post up, but I'm happy either way, and I'm glad the feedback here motivated me to make the call. Question: are you literally never going to leave the bird ever again? If so, that's not healthy. OP: no, I'm working up to her eventually being more independent, but it takes a long time to heal trauma with these birds. They have very strong memories, and I've only recently reached a point where she's finally becoming more comfortable. I rescued an African gray about 30 years ago. It does take time, but it's been 3 years. It does not take that long. My gray was fine after 3 or 4 months. It's not fair to say, my animal healed from trauma this fast, yours should too. My mom rescued a 1-year-old Chihuahua, and it was about 9 months before he'd even let us pet him. He's now 7, and just in the last year started showing interest in playing, as he would try to play previously and get too scared. There's no rule book for how quickly animals will heal from mistreatment. This isn't an animal you can simply drop off at a pet sitter. OP could lose the bird's trust if the bird thinks OP has abandoned them. Same time, you're already associating bonding as being a free babysitter. Also, a last-minute one at that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. just sounded a little callous, but then again, you are not obligated to be her babysitter. Not the jerk. I'd normally say you were a jerk for putting a bird before family, but you've made it clear she's been pretty distant with you. The thing about relationships, all relationships, is they require effort and attention. Just because you're related, by blood or law, doesn't mean someone is entitled to your presence, especially if the relationship isn't exactly a good one. You aren't the jerk. I assume if your relationship were better, you'd make more of an effort. You're still going, so it isn't like you're skipping the wedding. Not the jerk. I don't blame you. Edit. Also, my sister has twins, and more often than not, spending time with the kids means babysitting them. This doesn't sound like a vacation, but a desire to put you to work. Not the jerk. Parrots are not just birds like budgies where you can ask a pet sitter to feed them and water them one week. Parrots are like gifted kids who scream and can rip your fingers off. There's an 80-year commitment and often only bond to a single person. Birds in general are extremely sensitive to any environmental changes, so someone who doesn't know what they're doing can end up hurting the parrot. Shame on everyone for saying choosing an animal over family like it's a bad thing. The parrot seems more like family than her stepdaughter. If it was that big of a deal, then stepdaughter would help make accommodations rather than just want a babysitter. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her stepdaughter? Please let us know. You're not obligated to go out there and spend a week babysitting for them. I'd pick my parrot over her any day. Break a leg, boss. I worked in a horrible little discount grocery store. I worked in the freezer department, and due to the fact that people would hang out in our freezers to pass time when there was nothing to do, Rose put a rule in place that an employee with higher status was to accompany other employees into the freezer at all times. Now, most of the time, no one followed this rule because it was dumb and we still did our work. For context, the store closes at 8, but all of the back staff clocked out at 5. I usually was there a little after 5, just doing last-minute stocking and cleaning. Anyhow, one night, as usual, everyone clocks out at 5. I'm finishing up with the freezer stuff. Rose happens to walk over and ask if I was still clocked in. Oh yeah, she would regularly ask me to clock out at 5, but to continue working. So much fun. Anyhow, she asks whether or not I'm still clocked in. I say yes. She asks why there's no hot wings out in the front where customers could get some. I said we were out and would be getting them on Monday, but she said they should be here by Saturday night. I said yes, but the shipment would be getting here after I left. I wouldn't be able to put it out until Monday. She asks if we can take a trip to the back to double check. I said that I know we don't have any, but she says she's the manager and she knows we should have some because she has no idea what's going on in the back. I decide to maliciously comply. I say I can, but I need her to come with me. She asks why I can't just get someone from the back, but I tell her they've all clocked out already. She says fine, but that she needs a jacket. Since it's the summer, she didn't bring one, and all of the spare ones are too small. So we go into the freezer, me bundled up in my blizzard attire, her in a t-shirt, dress, bonnet, and sandals. So we go in. It's literally snowing. I start climbing up boxes, crawling under stuff, looking, searching for this mythical box of wings. After about 15 minutes of thorough searching, she asks if I found them. I said no, but per her request, I'll keep searching. The quest continues. Now keep in mind, these freezers are about as large as a large school cafeteria. It took me about 45 minutes to check through the entire freezer, detailed to find the wings. I tell her I'm done in this one, and she, relieved, thanks me for looking. No, I say, this is just the first freezer. Still 2 more to look through. Her face drops. She says she thinks we're fine, but oh no, I insist. She said we should have some. I'm just following her orders. 2 hours and 30 minutes later, still no sign of the legendary chicken wings. We exit the 3rd freezer, and I swear her lips were blue. I shrug and say, I guess they aren't in there. She, relieved, says I can check out now. But oh wait, glorious day. The shipment of frozen stuff comes in. She wishes me luck and goes to leave, but I say, wait, I need to put this new shipment into their respective freezers, and I need a higher up to accompany me. She's clearly ticked off at this point, actively shivering, but hey, her rules, not mine. Another 45 minutes, give or take, and boy, were my hand warmers useful. All the crates full of frozen stuff is now in the freezer. But are we done? Nope. Since I'm still here, I might as well restock the shelves in the front of the store. And well, I need a manager to accompany me for that too. Before long, those chicken wings were out on the shelf, conveniently ready for customers to buy. At 8:30, I clock out with all of the front of store staff, and Miss Rose hangs out in the hot kitchen to warm up. $121 richer than when I woke up and went home and ate dinner. Come Monday, Rose announced that there were no longer limitations on who could be in the freezer and when, just as long as we kept our production on course. And I guess we did. Dumb rules, right? But it all worked out. I'm just happy she got cold feet when she did. It just sucked that she gave me the cold shoulder over her own dumb rule. Am I the jerk for bringing up her daughter getting expelled? This might be a little controversial, I don't know. But basically, my sister buys her kids, 3 boys under 10, whatever they want. But get this, they aren't spoiled brats. She's taught them manners, how privileged they are, etc., and will absolutely discipline them if they misbehave. But she has never said no to buying them a toy or anything unless it was harmful or whatever else. She thinks that if she can afford it, there's no reason to say no. Again, unless it's dangerous or something. The boys also have a room stocked with toys. It's actually pretty cool. They have their own rooms as well, but that playroom goes hard. I'm saying this as a 22-year-old woman. My sister's sister-in-law isn't a huge fan of this. She thinks that my sister is spoiling them and that even if it isn't showing now, it's bound to make them misbehave in some way soon enough. My sister tells her sister-in-law to mind her own business. I'm on my sister's side simply because I know her. She's a wonderful mother and a teacher. Her sister-in-law is just jealous because of how close my sister is to her kids, because one thing about those boys, they love their mom. Her sister-in-law's relationship with her kids is complicated. Anyways, my sister hosted a girls' night with me, our sisters, and her sister-in-laws. Her husband was out and her kids were in bed. We were having a good time when sister-in-law left to use the washroom. All of a sudden, we heard a loud crash coming from the playroom. My sister almost had a heart attack, thinking one of the boys had snuck into the room and got hurt. Nope, it was just her sister-in-law. She was basically trying to take some of the toys and had put a couple in her bag. My sister was just shocked and asked if she was being serious. Her sister-in-law just shrugged and said that they have too many toys and the toys will probably be better off with less privileged kids. My sister told her to get out, but she kept arguing, saying that she's raising spoiled and entitled kids and that she's scared for the future generation. My sister was about to lose it, so I cut in and said that she should be concerned for her own kids, considering her eldest just got expelled for bullying. It went quiet and she started crying. She called me a jerk and said she was only trying to help and I had no right to bring up her daughter. She insisted that her daughter getting expelled has nothing to do with the situation and I was just trying to insult her. She did leave though. The rest of us helped clean up, but one of the sister-in-law's sisters said that I shouldn't have brought up her kids. I called her to talk, but she hasn't answered. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Good for you for standing up for your sister. And what? Sister-in-law trying to steal her nephew's toys? Insane. She would not have left if you hadn't thrown that out there about her daughter. It seemed like she needed a reality check and you gave her one. Sister-in-law is jealous of your sister and her great relationship with her sons and good parenting. Good for you. Not the jerk. Your sister is doing an excellent job with her boys. The teen years can be challenging even with good kids. Having a positive, healthy relationship going in makes it so much easier. Having a good relationship with your kids doesn't just happen. It's something that's nurtured from a very young age. Spending quality time doing things with them, allowing them to participate in decisions, teaching them to be respectful and considerate of others. Not the jerk. Her daughter being a bully is probably directly connected to her being a bully, like in this case towards your sister. Not the jerk. She was acting entirely out of line, essentially stealing from someone else's kids, and was planning on giving it to her own kids, assuming also the suspended child, which is rewarding bad behavior. She wanted to control how your sister parents her kids, but was insulted when you brought up her own parenting, or lack thereof. She can't have it both ways. As a side note, was she just expecting to fill her purse and walk out without your sister realizing toys were missing? What kind of Grinch nonsense is this? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my brother-in-law's new wife in front of everyone? For context, it was not my intention, but it was absolutely how it played out. My brother-in-law, husband's brother, was away for college for 4 years and ended up eloping with a woman he had known for 7 months. None of us knew her, not that it mattered, but we just met her for the first time back a few months ago. She seemed pleasant, a bit shy, which is to be expected, and a bit rough around the edges. No big deal at all, but just like fidgety, darting her head and looking behind her shoulder like someone was standing there when no one was. We found out a few short weeks later that she has bipolar unmedicated, so her behaviors absolutely made sense. I'm an RN as well as a social worker, and I also have bipolar, but I'm medicated. On Saturday, mother-in-law invited the whole family down for dinner, and brother-in-law and his new wife, Hannah, show up, and we got to chatting at the dinner table about her diagnosis. She brought it up, not me, but she knew I knew about it, so it started as small talk, I believe. Well, it didn't take long for her to dive deep into this conversation, using her arms and hands to talk, getting a bit loud. No problems, the family is loud, so she fits right in. But then she became angry over nothing. Started saying stuff like, "It absolutely repulses me that people without bipolar try claiming they are manic when mania is strictly a bipolar thing." I wasn't rude by any means, but I did correct her, quietly, and said, "Actually, mania comes in all forms, and it's not limited to bipolar disorders. Even people with brain tumors have been known to have manic episodes." She immediately said I was wrong, that her doctor told her it was strictly a bipolar thing, etc. So I just stood firm and said, "He's wrong," and even pulled up my medical ebook to show her the paragraph that speaks on mania and everything that can cause an episode. She refused to read it, so I just turned to my husband, who wasn't paying attention to us, and said, "Honey, you're a doctor. What causes manic episodes?" He starts listing off multiple things, including manic depressive episodes, seasonal affective disorders, postpartum psychosis, and schizoaffective disorder. Well, Hannah was ticked. She immediately said that we were just trying to one-up her and that she knew what she was talking about. My husband immediately said, "Obviously not if you're going to sit here, argue, and gatekeep symptoms of illnesses against two medical professionals." He then turned and walked off, leaving us at the table with both brother-in-laws, sister-in-law, and mother-in-law looking on. Hannah then starts crying, saying I embarrassed her on purpose for no good reason other than my pride, and stormed out of the room after screaming for everyone to stop staring at her. Brother-in-law is telling me I should have just shut my mouth and storms after her. I'm really confused if I'm the jerk here. ETA, making an ad to include some key points here. I was quiet throughout this entire conversation. I was speaking so no one else could hear, which is exactly why my husband, who was sitting directly beside me, had no idea what we were talking about until I brought it up to him in the conversation. She did not appear to be in any sort of episode when the conversation began, other than the first initial spew of how it repulses her. She calmed down immediately afterwards, and only slowly showed how manic she was after raising her voice at my husband for simply stating what can cause a manic episode that does not include bipolar. I was having what I thought was an academically correct conversation with an individual as small talk, mentioned in my post. She was the one who became loud and belligerent. No one at the table had any clue what me and Hannah were even talking about until Hannah started screaming at me over the table. It's my job as both a social worker and an RN to educate individuals whom are uneducated on their illness. So yes, that probably played a part. It's more dangerous to be uneducated than it is to be educated, and to be blunt, her doctor giving her false information to begin with is troubling in itself. Not the jerk. I hate it when I'm having what I think is a strictly academic discussion with someone and they start to take it all personally. Same. I work in healthcare and now I'm super skittish about answering general conversational questions. So often it turns out that they only wanted me to back up their self-treatment protocol or their perception of their condition even though I don't know anything about their health. Or they will ask me about a wellness influencer and I think they're asking a simple question, but really they get angry that I don't know who they are, and then get mad again because I say I can't comment on them without researching their credentials and their advice. Not the jerk. Hannah's diagnosis does not give her a license to rearrange reality as she sees fit, and she brought up the topic in the first place. Not the jerk. She embarrassed herself by doubling down. Sounds like you gave her plenty of opportunities to retract her statement. Not the jerk. She embarrassed herself. Your husband is absolutely right. She's gatekeeping her illness. I'm not sure where you should proceed from here, but going forward, I'd probably go low contact. If her whole family is with her on this, it'll constantly be brought up that this argument happened. I'd save myself the headache. You're the jerk. You can hide behind lots of different justifications, but the bottom line is you argued and were confrontational with a woman who you knew was feeling vulnerable and probably did so for bad reasons, such as a desire to dominate her. If you were as well informed as you claimed, you should know that an emotional reaction to a situation is 100% not the same as mania, and you might want to reflect on why you tried so hard to shame her. I don't think you're okay with brother-in-law eloping with a new woman you hadn't met. You spent a good amount of your post listing all the reasons you are superior to her, which seems unduly defensive. My advice is apologize to her, to brother-in-law and your in-law family, and hope that you can be quickly forgiven. Make it your goal to ease this woman's entry into your in-law's family from here on out. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Believe it or not, you don't always have to correct someone in a conversation if they're academically incorrect about something. There are some people out there who you're better off letting them believe whatever they do and just, not dealing with them. Am I the jerk for bringing the receipts when my ex had me shunned from our mutual friend group? I'm 26, female, and my ex-boyfriend, 27, male, broke up with me a week ago. It felt sudden to me, and there was no warning it was going to happen. However, we handled it very amicably, in my opinion, and he wanted to try and stay friends. I met him online through a mutual friend and had been friends with him and the rest of the group for a few months before dating. When I went into the hospital back in August, I sort of just fell away from that group of people where I couldn't be online. However, one of our mutual friends had caused a lot of drama and we both cut her out of our lives because it was very toxic. Now, in December, she reached out to me, apologized, and we started to talk slowly again. My ex-boyfriend during this whole time would message me and tell me over Discord that he couldn't stand her and said that I could talk to her, but he was completely done with her. I'd always ask him about hanging out with other friends or playing games with other people and encourage him to do so while I was sick and or offline. His responses were always, I don't really talk to anyone anymore, or I only want to talk and play with you. And when I dig deeper, he said they all just fell out of touch. Fast forward to the breakup. The first thing he does, after our apparently amicable and no hard feelings talk, was to go straight to that mutual friend he said he hated with a passion and tell her everything I ever did or said wrong in our relationship. He told her a private conversation we had where I jokingly brought up how often she cycled through flings, and then told her and every other mutual friend we had that I was the reason he stopped talking to everyone. That he was worried I'd get jealous or upset if he talked to or played with anyone else but me. Because, and I'm quoting him verbatim here, I know how I would feel in that situation, and I didn't want to put you through that. I'm sorry, what? So this friend came at me over DMs and asked why I would say and do such things. I was shocked and extremely hurt. I never would ask or make someone give up his friends or isolate them from anyone, as this seems controlling and I didn't want that. So my petty self said, forget this. I went through our past conversations, took screenshots, and privately messaged everyone he told this BS to, apologizing that I was the reason they lost their friend, then followed up with the pictures to prove he did this on his own and against my wishes. These photos may or may not have also shown the crap talk he said about that one mutual friend. He's been blowing up my phone since, asking how I could do that and call him out like that. All he wanted was a clean break and to get his friends back, and that I'm a jerk for making them question him. I haven't responded because in my opinion, he lied about me and our relationship to friends we both had, who then took his side, no questions asked, and kicked me out of their lives and Discord servers based off word of mouth. So Reddit, am I the jerk for sending proof to our friends? So not the jerk. I can't even imagine how twisted he got himself to try and throw you under the bus like that. OP, I assume it was his way of getting closure, but it was very cruel and so out of left field, especially since he was the one who broke things off. Not the jerk. He was the one to expose your private conversations by telling the one friend about the offhand comment you made before you got to know her better. And then he used that to start a smear campaign against you. If he's going to start some BS like that, he really should have thought things through. Yeah, you could have just walked away from that mess and the people who would blindly take his side without talking to you first, but revenge is so much sweeter. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You just finished what he started. He wanted to show them one text that reflected you in a bad light, and you showed them all the text to clear up any confusion. Was it a jerk move on your part? Maybe, but it's a justified one. His way was manipulative, and yours was informative. I'm sure your friends are all a bit uncomfortable with being put in the middle of this, but they can all talk to him about that since he's the one to drag them all in here. I'm sorry your breakup wasn't as amicable as you thought. At least he's out of your life now, and you can see what a huge bullet you dodged. Sounds like a situation I was in with online friends. The guy tossed me under the bus to make himself look good and me look bad. I let it go at the time, but over the months and weeks after, they'd ask me questions, and I'd just share screen with them so they could see unedited Discord conversations. Your guy messed around and found out. He got exactly what he deserved. Zero sympathy for him. You absolutely dodged a bullet just like I did. Remember this going forward also. It's a life lesson, not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex? Please let us know. Life tip for more happiness: stay off of Discord. Something about being in Discord servers just makes people want to fight and start drama with you. Stay off of Twitter too, you will be so much happier. Am I the jerk for making a scene and kicking my cousin out of a baby shower? My wife, 28 female, is pregnant with our first kid. She's about 5 months along, and I, 29 male, am very excited to be a father. This past weekend we had a baby shower at our house. We invited both sides of our family rather than trying to do 2 separate baby showers. I have a cousin, Sue, who's 22, who I wasn't going to invite because she's very open about being child-free. She said some very out there things in the past about these topics, and I figured she wouldn't want to come even if we invited her. But after getting pressure from both my mom and Sue's mom about not leaving her out, I reluctantly sent Sue an invite, and to my surprise, she accepted. For the most part, things went well at the baby shower. But when my wife started opening presents, Sue kept making comments. First, it was about how much waste diapers create and how wasteful baby clothes are because they outgrow them so fast. Then it was about how so many babies and kids' toys are made overseas where workers are taken advantage of. Then, when my mom told us that they had already set up a college fund for our kid, Sue made a comment about how parents shouldn't force their kids out of the house at 18 and how if people had to support their kids all through life, maybe less people would have kids. It was at this point that I pulled Sue aside and talked to her in another room. I told her that if she hates the idea of kids so much, then she might as well just leave. She said she was just stating facts and that the truth can never be controversial. I told her that in that case, I have a hard truth for her. I told her that the only reason I invited her is because her mom practically begged me to, and I don't want her in our house and that she's no longer welcome, so she should leave. I must have raised my voice louder than I thought because my mom and Sue's mom came into the room and asked what was going on. Sue said that I'm kicking her out because she's child-free. I told her I'm kicking her out because she's being a jerk on a day that's supposed to be about celebrating my wife's pregnancy, and all Sue is doing is making it about her BS beliefs. My mom and Sue's mom tried to calm things down, but I insisted that Sue leave right then and there, or I would be forced to call the police because she's currently trespassing. Sue grabbed her things and stormed out, and my mom and Sue's mom got mad at me. They told me that Sue was just stating her opinion and that some of the things she said are true. I told them that there's a time and place for that kind of conversation, and a baby shower sure isn't it. I told them this is exactly why I didn't want to invite Sue in the first place, and as far as I'm concerned, they're just as much to blame as she is. Literally, no one is happy, and the whole baby shower became about something else instead of focusing on my wife and our upcoming baby. There's a time and a place for stating your opinion. Being a jerk when someone is opening a gift and talking about how wasteful that gift is and so on is not that place or time. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Sue? Please let us know. People who spend their lives obsessing over the fact that others choose to have kids, people like that need help, bruh. New Karen neighbor demands to use my Wi-Fi. I, 24 female, share a house with 2 others of similar ages. We all work as freelance creatives and don't earn loads. Our next door neighbor, Anna, name's changed obviously, moved in a few months ago. She has 2 kids who are 8 and 10, and she's a single mom. I was raised by a single mom, and so obviously wanted to make sure she was okay. I said if she needed a hand settling in, just let me know. A week later, she knocked on my door asking to use the Wi-Fi for her kids, saying that she was having trouble getting the electrician in. Totally fine. A couple weeks pass, and we get a knock on the door, and a kid, her kid, is standing there with the mobile asking for the password. I give it to him as I'm not really going to say no to a kid. A month or so passes, and we're having a few issues with the Wi-Fi. Nothing major, just buffering and stop and starts on Zoom calls. But I work from home sometimes, so need fast Wi-Fi. I texted Anna asking if she had gotten an electrician in. I know she hasn't, as I can see she's connected, but as a gentle nudge. There are now 7 additional devices on our Wi-Fi at this point. She says she's still having issues getting an electrician in. Fine, whatever. It's around the holidays, I get it. Fast forward to now. It's been nearly 3 months and no sign of an electrician. All her devices are currently using our Wi-Fi and we're still having issues with speed. We could upgrade it to be faster, but it's about $20 more a month. My roommate says just to cut her off and not say anything, but I feel bad doing that to a single mom. She also has not attempted any kind of contact or friendship with us besides asking for the Wi-Fi, or ask to extend using it or offer to chip in for it. We have been friendly, giving her a gift for Christmas and offered to babysit should she need it. 5+ years experience doing this. Would I be the jerk for just cutting it off and claiming that we are having issues with it? Not the jerk. Just be honest with her that it's impacting your work and only you and your roommates can be on it. Also, you don't need an electrician to get Wi-Fi, unless you don't have power at all. Saying she needs an electrician for Wi-Fi doesn't even make sense. Not the jerk. She's using you. Someone who has 7 devices has the money for her Wi-Fi. It's clearly not a problem for the engineer not coming, but her not even asking for a Wi-Fi installation. Change your password. Your work is more important than those kids' internet connection. Not the jerk. I think you should just be honest though. Just explain that you need fast internet to work from home and that it's affecting your roommates as well. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her neighbor? Please let us know.
When will people learn you never give your Wi-Fi password to anyone? Sometimes I think the people who write these stories are just too nice. It gets to me.
My daughter demands I pay for her wedding. I have 3 daughters who are 29, 27, and 22. The older 2 are happily married with families of their own. I paid for both of their weddings, around $20,000. My youngest daughter is with a guy that I just can't stand. I'm really not a fan of him. He's 30, hasn't lived on his own until he moved in with my daughter 6 months ago, only 3 months since they started dating. He's had 2 jobs during that time and is currently unemployed. He was fired from both, and he has a ton of stories about how it was everyone else's fault in both cases. It's also everyone else's fault that he couldn't move out of his mom's, and I have a feeling my daughter is paying more of their bills than he is. He moved in with my daughter because he said his mom was mistreating him at home, and it was hurting his mental health. But I'm starting to think that the mistreatment was more so people having some bare minimum expectations for the guy. He seems to have a serious issue taking accountability. He has poor hygiene, is lazy, and to be honest, not all that intelligent. They both live like slobs and are constantly struggling to pay their bills. Well, my daughter came to me the other night to let me know they had started looking at wedding venues and wanted to know what their budget would be. Mind you, they've been together 9 months and aren't even engaged. I told her $0 and that they had no business getting married. She got huffy with me and then told me, "Well, I guess we'll just have to elope." I told her that was fine. I can't stop her from doing it, but she needs to understand that if she wants to make these kinds of adult decisions, then she will be treated like an adult, and her husband will be responsible for taking care of themselves and whatever kids they have. She's mentioned having kids young many times as well, and that dad wasn't going to just bail them out whenever. Now she won't talk to me, aside from saying that I don't get to dictate who she marries, and that her sisters both had their weddings paid for, so I obviously don't love her the same. I do love her, but she has always been desperate to grow up and get married, and I'm pretty sure she's more in love with the idea of marriage than she is with this guy. She can be very immature. She is the baby in a large extended family, and I think that has a bit to do with it, which is why I don't want to enable this fairy tale that she's cooking up. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Oh, look, another controlling dad who thinks he gets to decide who his daughter should be marrying. I can tell you firsthand that parents like you are what drives their kids away. Don't be surprised when your daughter goes no contact with you. She's a grown woman. That means she gets to decide who she loves. I can only imagine how controlling you were when she was growing up. You have absolutely no right to an opinion on whether or not she should marry this man. Having a job isn't what makes someone a good person, and it's too bad that's all you care about. This is why I'm so glad I didn't grow up with a dad. My mom was a single mom, and she raised me to respect others. If I had a dad like you, I can only imagine how controlling and judgmental he would have been about my partners. If you actually love your daughter, you better drop the attitude and put your money where your mouth is. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. That last commenter was a perfect example of why I've lost all hope for future generations. Am I the jerk for pulling over for a funeral procession? My wife and I went back to my hometown to visit my family this week. Where I grew up is across the country and much more rural than where we live currently and where my wife grew up. We decided to go see a play in a nearby city that my wife has been wanting to see, and we were running a little late because she didn't get ready on time and we were in a rush. A few minutes into the drive, I saw a funeral procession coming down the road towards us, so I pulled over and put my hazards on. My wife then asks me what I'm doing. I tell her that a funeral procession is passing by, so I have to pull over. She asks why, and says that it isn't against the law to keep driving. I say that I know it isn't against the law, but it's a sign of respect that I've always been taught to do. She then starts to get irritated and says that if we sit and wait for them to pass, then we're going to miss the show and they won't let us in. I said that maybe it's a cultural difference, but I'm truly sorry if we do miss the play, but this is something I feel strongly about, and I'm not going to move until they've passed. My wife then gets even angrier and says that she doesn't understand why I have to act this way. I then tried to explain myself as best as I could. I told her that some of those people in that line are currently having the worst day of their life. They're on their way to say goodbye forever to someone that they love. Having been there before, it can be infuriating watching the world continue to go on as normal as your life is being totally shattered. Why isn't the rest of the world mourning a beautiful life being taken? In that short ride between the funeral and the grave, our local culture acknowledges this unfairness. I pointed at the cars behind us and said that each of those people have places they need to be as well. By stopping, we're saying to the grieving, we may not have known the deceased, but we will acknowledge both them and your grief by putting our lives on hold for 5 to 10 minutes while you pass. I've been in that line before, and this simple act by others meant a lot to me. My wife just argued that I was putting the feelings of complete strangers over her, and I knew how much she wanted to see this play, and I was taking that away from her for people I don't even know. I stood my ground and didn't move. By the time it had passed, there was no chance we would make the play, so we went home. My wife is still angry at me and wants me to apologize, which I did for her having missed something that she was looking forward to, but said I would still do it again. Edit. I honestly never expected to wake up to this many comments. While I am fully ready to accept my judgment, I would like to just say that I did not do this to teach my wife a lesson, as a lot of people seem to think. This is something that I've always done, as well as everyone that I know from my town. Edit 2. I've read through pretty much all of the comments, and this really seems to be a matter of cultural differences. Everyone is free to their own opinions, of course, but it is a little hurtful to read all the comments saying that I just did this out of spite. It may be unbelievable to some, but this practice is followed by practically everyone where I'm from. I've on occasion been late to different things in my life due to it, and all I've ever had to say is, sorry, I stopped for a funeral procession, and everyone immediately understood. If you want to call me a jerk anyway, I won't argue. I just don't want judgment passed based on motives prescribed to me that simply are not true. You're the jerk as much as I can relate. I live in the South where it's the custom. If no one else was pulled over, it sounds like you were trying to start your own cultural tradition, and it didn't do much for your marriage. I suspect a bit of passive-aggressive behavior here. Your wife caused a delay in starting out, so is this your way of teaching her a lesson? Or were you so uncomfortable at the thought of arriving late that this seemed like a convenient way to go home and avoid that? If this is typical, you two had better get couples counseling ASAP. You're the jerk. You didn't know these people, but you do know your wife. Would they have been upset if you didn't pull over? Maybe. Did your actions upset your wife? Yes. You missed the play to prove a point. Pulling over may have been a fine custom once in small towns, but it doesn't work so well now. I live next to a town where funeral processions are, for most of the people around us, a major headache. Yes, some people have to yield to the procession, but everyone else should just keep the traffic flowing. Whenever I've been in a funeral procession, I've not been in a mood to pay attention to whatever I was passing by. The person who's being honored is definitely not going to know if anyone stopped. You prioritize the vaguely possible feelings over a bunch of total strangers over your wife. You're the jerk. Virtue signaling at its finest. Tell me you're a sanctimonious husband without actually saying you're a sanctimonious husband. If my husband tried to pull some crap like this with me, he'd be single. Disrupting the flow of traffic and making your wife miss her play was completely unnecessary. Don't be surprised when she leaves you for someone who doesn't feel the need to virtue signal what a saint they are. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
I think it sounded like kind of a nice thing to do, but what do I know? I'm just a Karen.
Am I the jerk for refusing to take my ex-wife to my son's wedding? My son is 22. My daughter is 18. 6 years ago, my daughter caught my wife with another man. She told her brother, who understood what she had witnessed, then they both came and told me. I verified that it was true, then I divorced my wife. During the divorce hearing, both of them expressed a desire to stay with me, so I was given primary custody with her getting 1 week a month. She moved in with the other guy. I've done my best to cut my ex out of my life. Our communication is limited to the bare minimum needed to coordinate custody and shared expenses, and I've never talked about our relationship to my kids. Initially, after the divorce, she told me that our kids were giving her crap, when it was her custody and that I needed to talk to them. I sat them down and asked if this was true, and they said that they didn't want to stay there. But I explained that it would be best for everyone if they remained civil until they turned 18, so we wouldn't have to go back to court. I didn't get complaints after that, so it seemed to be working. When my son turned 18, he moved back in with me full-time and started college. He graduated now, and he's getting married in a few months. My daughter turned 18 last summer and moved back in with me full-time too. My ex-wife called me today and she started crying, saying that she was not invited to my son's wedding. Then she told me that my son hasn't talked to her in over a year. He had still been dropping in after turning 18 to visit his sister sometimes, but eventually stopped doing that too. Likewise, apparently my daughter stopped talking to her after turning 18 too. Then my ex-wife asked if I would bring her as my +1 so she could see her son getting married, but I told her if my son didn't invite her, it wasn't my place to bring her. Then she started accusing me of turning them against her and threatening to take me to court. But I told her that there was no more custody agreement to take to court since both of them are over 18, and I hung up. I sat down with both of them later and asked them if they had cut contact with their mother, and they both admitted it. I explained to them that they did not need to do that for my sake, and I still recognize she's their mother. But they both said that they had talked about it a lot, and their plan was always to hold out until they were 18, but they had no desire to be around her or the other guy because she had destroyed our family. I told them that they're adults, and if that's their decision, I won't pressure them to change it. I was telling my sister what happened, and to my surprise, she said my son wasn't being fair and I should make him invite his mother to the wedding. Am I the jerk for refusing the attempt? Not the jerk. She had 6 years to figure out how to at least repair enough damage that her kids wouldn't go no contact the moment they were able to. Sounds like the opposite happened. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but your sister is. I don't know what's with people pushing family members to reconcile simply because they're blood related, but it's something that needs to stop. People are allowed to choose who they want in their lives, and just because someone helped create you doesn't mean you have to choose them. Your sister is being empathetic and putting herself in your ex's shoes. Your ex is no doubt heartbroken, but it's a result of her own actions that broke 3 more, far more vulnerable hearts. Your sister should extend your son the same empathic courtesy. Ask her to imagine that if she was saying her marriage vows, would she want the homewrecker who wrecked her home specifically there? Her biggest, most personal example of how to destroy a marriage? Also, anyone who thinks your kid's feelings are extreme should not forget the kids discovered her infidelity first and were forced into a position of either betraying you or ending their own family unit. Yeah, easy not the jerk for you and your son. Forget your ex-wife. Apparently, it's rude to ask customers to please not touch employee equipment. So I'm working 2 jobs while in school right now. One job is a more traditional serving job. The second job is at a counter service style restaurant where you order at the front and seat yourself with a table number in hand and an employee brings your food out to you. Yesterday was Sunday, which is our busiest and unfortunately least staffed day. I handle rushes at this job really well despite being fairly new still. I had a line of about 6 people formed with a full dining room. I was assisting a customer who had just come in to pick up a to-go order. This took maybe about 2 minutes as I did have to make a couple of drinks. I was a bit to the side of the register when I assisted the current customer, so I politely informed the next guest I would be with them ASAP, and they told me to take my time. The guests waiting had already had their food, but they decided to order a dessert to go apparently. Literally about 20 seconds after they told me to take my time, the customer I'm currently assisting goes, while pointing in their direction. The customers in line are leaning over the counter and attempting to ring in their own order. I said, "Sir, please do not do that. As I said, I'll be with you in just a moment. I'm finishing this gentleman's last drink now." The customer sheepishly said, "We just figured we could ring it in ourselves." I said I'm sorry, but no. These are not set up to be self-service kiosks and they needed to wait. By this time, I was ready to take their order, but they had already managed to send an incorrect order through to the kitchen. They didn't mark it properly as to go, which, duh, they don't work there and aren't trained to know how to do this. So I had to go into the back and explain to the kitchen what happened and to not make that order and come back to the front and correct their order. They were in such a hurry, they ended up causing an even longer wait for themselves and the others in the line. The previous customer kind of looked at them like they were weirdos while he was leaving. They did mumble an apology and said they just assumed it couldn't be that hard, so they wanted to do it. I just politely reaffirmed that our store is not set up for this and asked them kindly to please be patient with me in the future and apologized that there was a wait that inconvenienced them at all. The man later called and complained, saying I embarrassed him in front of his family for scolding him, which is funny. I really was much kinder about it than a lot of my coworkers might have been, and also said that I told him he wasn't smart enough to do my job, which just isn't true. It was just such a bizarre interaction, I wanted to share it. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother be part of the family business? I, 44 male, have a younger brother, 41 male, and we are the only kids. Also, we are not from the US or any Western country, so please excuse any errors. My father passed almost 10 years ago. Since our mother was also gone, we divided his estate equally. His estate was a farm of 30 acres. Back then it had a house, a barn, a pond, wheat fields, and olive fields. Both of us were working office jobs in the city and did not want to be farmers. But after my dad passed, my wife convinced me to quit, buy out my brother, and start a business with her. She had degrees in business and hospitality. I was working in accounting. And that's what I did. I bought out my brother at market price. After that, my wife and I transformed the farm, got government subsidies to make our farm more sustainable, transformed the area by the pond into a garden and romantic strolling route and a fishing spot. The closest farm plots were made into a farm and some made available to guests to rent, built small houses, built a stable and bought some horses. We made it into a retreat where you can either spend the day, act as a farmer, or have some authentic food, or rent a cabin and try farm life. The rest of the farm was left to farm hands. Since we are barely 2 hours outside of city limits, it became a booming business. We're booked solid all year. We have schools coming for tours, activities every weekend, couples throwing their weddings here. And after the first 5 years, we were able to pay off our debt and are making great money. My brother used his money to buy a house, 2 cars, and on his children's schooling. And they're living well, I would say upper middle class by my country standards, but nothing like me and my family. Now he says that what he wants is in on the business, that what he was paid was not fair. I told him no, that he got what his land was worth back then. Now he's no longer talking with me, and he's the only family I have left. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He got market value for his half. He used it up. You invested your time and money, and now you're getting your return on investment. No need to feel guilty. Not the jerk. If he had invested his half of the money into literally anything else, would he share the fruits of that investment with you? I don't think so. You had all the work transforming the place, and you had all the risk of it not working too. Also, it definitely sounds like you invested some of your own money too to make all that possible. He wants all the fruits of the labor without doing any of the labor himself. I get that you don't want to lose him, so maybe there's a calm way to talk about all of this, with a mediator present or something like that. He needs to understand that you invested the money and succeeded. But I mean, you could have failed too, and if you did, would he just give you money from his half? Am I the jerk for finding my friend's behavior uncomfortable? About 3 months ago, I, 22 male, started hanging out with a new friend circle. At first, I knew only one person in the group, but most of them are very friendly and it was easy to feel included, and despite not knowing everyone for long, I just feel like part of the group. However, I recently started feeling uncomfortable with the behavior of one of my friends, who I'll call B, 20 female. B is probably the one I've talked to the least. I don't dislike her, but I believe that she prefers to talk with people she knows for longer. This is not the part that bothers me. It bothers me how she acts around A. A, 21 female, is very extroverted and is the person that made me feel the most welcome in the group. It sometimes feels like the entire friend circle revolves around her, which is fair because she gets along with literally everyone. Now to the problem. B is very attached to A. I mean, way too overattached. If they are both in the same room, 9 out of 10 times, B will be right beside A. If A is, for example, laying on the couch when B enters the room, she sometimes will literally ignore everyone else and beeline to A, and sometimes just lay on top of her. No matter what the context is, she's always hugging or touching A in some way, and it's not even subtle. Obviously, I don't have anything against them being close, but I think A is just obliging B for the sake of peace. B doesn't act like this with anyone else, nor is anyone else as attached to A as B. Also, my other friends are more respectful of personal space, so often A and B are the only two who are close together when we're all hanging out, and it's just really awkward. Finally, one day I was talking with A. My other friends were around, but doing something else in the same room, when B just interrupts our conversation to hug A. A just laughed and continued talking, but I found B's behavior very rude. Since I'm not as close to B, I decided to speak to A about the situation. A few days later, I brought it up when we were alone. I told her that she should speak with B and establish some boundaries. She just kind of shrugged and changed topics, but I insisted, saying that B's behavior was uncomfortable to see, especially when it's all of us hanging out. I specifically mentioned the incident of the other night. To my surprise, she just laughed and said if it really bothered me, I should just close my eyes. I warned her that if she kept letting B act like this, people could get wrong ideas. Finally, she told me to keep to myself and pretty rudely told me to shut up. I was surprised since A had never talked to me like this. I was only expressing how uncomfortable I was, and I don't know why A was defensive since B is the one in the wrong here. Maybe I should have talked to B directly, but either way, I want to know if I'm really the jerk here. Edit. Many people here seem to believe A and B are dating. Maybe I made it sound that way. If it's any relevance, they are not. If they were, I would at least understand why B is so attached. Edit 2. It seems people seem to believe I have romantic feelings towards A. I would have said so if I did, but I don't. You're the jerk. This is where you should mind your own business. Everyone has different boundaries. If A is okay with it, why do you care so much? This has nothing to do with you. It's between B and A. You're the one stressing out over it. They're fine. You're the jerk. They're both okay with the situation, and I'm really unsure as to why you're so bothered by it. Are you jealous, perhaps? Is it some kind of insecurity you're unaware of? I recommend trying to find that out. I'm not sure why this even bothers you. They aren't affecting you at all. Plus, there could be a dynamic you're missing. It certainly seems that way. Stay in your lane, or you'll be finding a new friend group. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
Sounds to me like an A and B sort of thing. Perhaps he should see his way out of it.
Oh, you just had to do that, didn't you? My stepmom and siblings are just using me for money. I have several siblings on my father's side. In total, there are 3 with the same mother as me and 5 who are my stepmom's kids. Naturally, some siblings are closer than others, but I consider us as one big group of siblings. Almost everyone has gotten kids, and in total, my father has 25 kids and grandkids. 6 of those don't live locally. Of the siblings with a different mother, I'm the only one that lives close by. I'm gonna be honest and say I'm not the best at visiting, but my little family ensures to visit the few times we're invited. We rarely ask for anything, as we don't want to be the kind who only come around when we need something. Now that you have some background, here's the case. Before Christmas, I asked my father and stepmom if there would be anything at their place during the holidays. Usually there's a family lunch where everyone is invited. I was told that this year that wouldn't happen because having everyone over just was too much work and stress. I understood and I was fine with it. Then, January 1st, I suddenly see on social media that all 16 of my stepmom's kids and grandkids are gathered there for a family lunch. I heard nothing of it and straight up felt hurt. I know they often get together during the year, and I'm fine with that, but this time I felt lied to. Except from asking a bit around, I didn't end up doing much about it. Until suddenly today, one of my step-siblings asked if we wanted to contribute towards a new PC for my father, as his one had broken down. I snapped and called my sister. I told her that I didn't like it how me and my family kept being forgotten for social family gatherings, but remembered every time there was a need for money. I then suddenly got an apology from my stepmom, where she basically blamed the lack of invitation on her oldest daughter. Some of her other kids said the same thing. I decided to ask my oldest stepsister directly about this, who told me she was being thrown under the bus. Now it's all just a big mess of drama, where some of the siblings support and understand my feelings, while others think I'm making a big deal out of nothing. As you probably can tell, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We do sometimes get invites for birthdays and such, but thinking about it, it's only occasions where bringing a gift is mandatory. No casual dinners, board game nights, or family barbecues. So the question is, am I the jerk for claiming my stepmom and step-siblings forget about me when planning family fun time and only remember me when they need money? Not the jerk. Don't give them anything. They left you out on purpose. Whether it's the oldest sister's fault or not, they all decided it was okay to leave you out, knowing you would see their posts. That's messed up. Not the jerk, but your dad is for not sticking up for you more. Also, they did not forget. Your stepmom did this on purpose because she just wanted her kids there. Make sure your dad knows that and let him know you're upset that he is cool with his treatment of his kids and grandkids. Stop acting like a teacher. So I did. 3 years ago, I started working in a company where my manager was a jerk that would insult us and blame any problem on his employees, trying to get them against each other. I got burned out after a year of 10-hour days and weekends, and on top of doing tasks that were greatly above my paycheck and completely different from what I was promised as I got there. So I gave my resignations. My manager thought I was useless, as he often said about anyone but himself. So instead of trying to find a new employee, he decided he would take over my role, to the horror of all my coworkers. The only problem, I was the only person who knew perfectly the company ERP program, and I would have had to teach him my 1.5-year experience in 2 weeks. As I started to teach him, he got more and more frustrated and terrified by the amount of workload that was coming his way and started to insult me even more. But I was still trying to teach him the best I could for the sake of my coworkers. All of this until the first day of my last week. I was pointing out a mistake he was making every time he did a certain task, and he replied at me saying, "Shut up, I don't need you acting like a teacher." So, malicious compliance. I didn't. I just sat beside him for the next and last 5 days, not teaching him anything, and every time he couldn't remember how to do something, I would jokingly cheer him up, telling him I was sure he could come up with a solution himself if he focused enough. When problems would come up that I still didn't have the time to solve, I would tell him, "I don't know how this thing happened. It never happened to me. You should contact the client service. They taught me everything when I needed." The peak of this was when he got so frustrated that he started to repeatedly slam his mouse against the desk and then sat there staring blankly at the screen for 10 minutes. I had to actually keep myself from laughing in his face. After I left, I spent the next 2 months getting called almost daily by my ex-colleagues to help them find files or solve problems that they couldn't find an answer for and that I didn't have the time to teach them as I had to stay with the manager all the time. Am I the jerk for asking all the guests to leave after my brother and sister-in-law's pregnancy announcement? I'm 28, male, and my wife, Anna, is 28. We were expecting. She was almost 3 months. We were really excited. We bought everything a baby needed and talked a lot about our future with the baby. August 23rd, 2022, she miscarried. We had a really hard time accepting the fact, but Anna was much more affected. She would cry in our bed for at least 4 hours every day. She wouldn't eat, and she would say awful things about herself. I had tried to console her to the best of my abilities, but I was grief-stricken myself, and I couldn't say the right words to her. It took 4 months of therapy for us to gradually start feeling better. Anna was smiling more. She was still a little on edge, but she was doing good. January 14th was Anna's birthday, and I wanted to make it really special for her. I invited our friends and family and cooked her favorite foods. I just wanted this day to be happy for her. For context, our families know about this situation and the effect it had on Anna, especially my brother and sister-in-law, as we had stayed in their house for a bit. While everyone was eating the food, my brother and sister-in-law got up and told everyone that sister-in-law was pregnant. After 4 seconds of silence, everyone in the room started congratulating them. I was stunned and turned to my wife, having an emotionless expression until she smiled slowly and congratulated them and hugged them both. For a good 20 minutes, everyone couldn't stop talking about pregnancy, baby names, and new baby toys. They could have easily announced this at their 5-year anniversary party, which was just 2 weeks away. What was the point of announcing it on my wife's birthday? I noticed my wife get up and leave to go to our bedroom. I found her crying. She told me she doesn't want to go out now, that she doesn't want to face them. I understood and quickly headed to the table where everyone was done eating, talking as if they hadn't noticed we had left. I didn't want to make a big scene, so I told everyone kindly that me and Anna had some plans for the evening and that we would have to cut this party short. That was the only thing that came to my mind at the moment. Sister-in-law comes walking towards me and starts yelling at me, saying that I'm doing this because of her announcement. I tried telling her as calmly as possible that it wasn't like that, and this was supposed to be Anna's birthday party, not some pregnancy announcement party. I said my goodbyes, then 2 hours later I got a message from my brother saying I was selfish and that I shouldn't be jealous just because we won't be as careless as the two of you. Careless as in implying that we had somehow caused the miscarriage, even though we were incredibly careful. I'm beyond frustrated. Do you think I'm the jerk because of how I handled the situation? Not the jerk. Announcing your pregnancy at someone else's party is incredibly selfish. Doing so at the party of someone who has recently miscarried is beyond evil. And as for your brother's carelessness moment, I think that's a clear case of fighting words. You're beyond frustrated? That's it? I'd be enraged. I am enraged on your behalf, and I don't even know you. I'm not sure why you're tiptoeing with these jerks. Not the jerk, and I'd be laying into them. On what planet was this appropriate? Even if you guys hadn't lost a pregnancy, it's rude to make someone else's party about you, just like you don't announce an engagement at someone's wedding. And his later remark about being careful? What? If one of my brothers pulled a stunt like that, they'd get an earful from me, whether it was my party or not. The way sister-in-law got in your face screaming and that comment your brother made at the end makes me think they announced the pregnancy at Anna's party on purpose, wanting to upset her. I have some ideas why they would do that, but none of it matters. Nothing can excuse this kind of behavior, especially if they had their own party 2 weeks later. Keep taking good care of Anna and go no contact, and obviously not the jerk. I must not talk to you unless you address me first? As you wish. I, 43 female, am an experienced landscape gardener, but due to an accident many years ago, I can no longer work the actual craft. In 2020, after 12 years of being a stay-at-home mom, I began working in the office of a quite large landscaping firm. My position was assistant to management, with Jack, one of the COOs, as my direct boss. At the time, I did mostly supporting paperwork. A couple of months later, the company hired Becky as a junior manager. She had just finished her master's degree, and this was her first real job, so she had a lot to learn. In the beginning, she relied on me for the paperwork and how our programs worked, and I thought we got along well, even though we were as different as two people can be. In spring of 2021, there were some changes made. For one, our whole department moved to new office rooms, and Becky and I were put in the same office. Also, I was taken out of day-to-day paperwork to exclusively work on surveying to get all the measurements needed to correctly bill our clients. About that time, our problem started. I'm on the ADHD spectrum, so I have habits of unconsciously fiddling or talking to myself and other stuff that unnerved her. She needed absolute quiet while working, whereas I prefer to hear music over headphones. Every time she told me something I did would disturb her, I tried to stop myself from doing that, be it mumbling, listening to music while she's in the office, even drinking coffee because your slurping is disgusting. I was not allowed to comment on anything concerning her. I'm a terribly curious person, and so on. Even though I love my job and everyone else in that company, that daily repression made me not want to go to work in the morning. It came to a head when one of our foremen was in the office. She gave him a task, he was annoyed, and I made a fun little comment that made the foreman chuckle, lightened his mood as intended. But after he had left, she exploded on me. How dare I undermine her authority, and how I had disrespected her position and what kind of a person I was. After all, she was a manager and I was merely the assistant. She went to Jack to complain about me, how she could not work with me when I was so obnoxious, yada yada. Long story short, Jack is a super chill boss. He talked to me to hear my side, and 3 days later, I moved all my stuff into another, smaller office where I've worked ever since. As I mentioned, I do the surveying for all managers' projects who need it, also for Becky. And she was very particular in how the plans had to be laid out, which items had to be on them, and so on. So when I did a survey and drafted the plans, we had to have several discussions and corrections about minute details none of the other managers even cared about. Everybody else, when I had a question regarding their projects, I would go to their office, see if they were free, and ask for the information that I needed, if I couldn't just draw it from the documentation. Not with Becky. She demanded I make appointments with her to schedule meetings to talk about these issues. That dragged work on her projects to absurd lengths. Also, she would give me deadlines for finishing and then take 1 to 4 weeks before even looking at what I had made. Then she would want to discuss that when I was already at the next project over. It was a pain. In December of 2021, we had another falling out when she questioned me about a project that I had finished in October and got upset when I couldn't immediately recall all the details. I mumbled something like, maybe assemble the bill not 2 months after finishing the project, and she blew up.
How dare you tell me how to do my work? I know what I'm doing. I don't have to put up with a lowly assistant.
I left, and luckily that was the last day of work in 2021. In 2022, work started with Becky calling me to her and instructing me on how we would proceed in the future. I was not to talk with her while working unless she approached me first or if we had a scheduled meeting. Also, I was only to talk to her about the tasks she had assigned to me, nothing else, as it was not my position to tell her how to do her job. Breaks were fair game, but by then my interest in making conversation with her had faded, so that's how it went. At this point, I have to mention that as part of my job, I sometimes look at the charts of work that has already been done, how much soil has been brought in, how much of which materials have been used, to get an idea of what needs to be included in the survey. In Becky's lists, I sometimes notice typing mistakes, like the surveyed amount of square meters entered when the volume, cubic meters, was demanded, which resulted in too high bills, which led to complaints by the client and reduction of the bill. I tried to tell that to Becky, but she stopped me before I really began, pointing out again I had to focus on my job and not to speak to her unless addressed by her first. Okay. For other managers, I would simply have corrected the mistake after quick consultation, but for her, nope. In the following months, I noticed a couple of these mistakes in her projects, but I kept my mouth shut. Also did not go to Jack about it because I did not want to appear like I was blackmailing her or something. Over the summer, I noticed more and more mistakes and how projects that had been finished in the spring had still not been billed. But somehow, Becky found the time to go on summer vacation twice. I noticed undocumented items, false entries, lacking entries, and other mistakes in the lists of her projects, and said nothing. In early August, she had finally assembled the bill for one of her bigger projects that had been finished months ago and forbade anyone to talk to her while she worked on the next. Then I received an email. The client who had received the aforementioned bill had rejected it due to the amount of mistakes and lack of confirmability. I had been CC'd as the surveyor, but the problem was not my surveys, but that Becky had not transferred the results correctly. The client denied payment and demanded immediate correction. The sum was around 250,000 euros, money the company had been waiting for months by the time. This was serious, so I decided to break my silence and tell Becky. She saw me through the glass door, and before my hand touched the handle, she yelled, "Don't talk to me." Well then, what's a girl to do? Wait for about 15 minutes until my super chill boss, who had been walking his dog over lunch break, returned to his computer. Of course, he had been CC'd as well, and his roar made the walls shake. Jack went to Becky's office and tore her a new one. Afterwards, came to me and asked me to please correct the lists as far as I'm able. In the following days, he went through all of Becky's projects, and needless to say, she's been gone since September. She wanted me to do everything her way, and I tried to comply with so much crap, but in the end, I complied so much, it got her fired. Am I the jerk for criticizing how my girlfriend acts during job interviews? My girlfriend is at a job she can't do remotely, and we're planning to move to another state together, so she's job hunting right now. Her first interview, she had a call with a top company whose recruiter had messaged her on LinkedIn. I was expecting her to treat it normally, but she spent an hour grilling the company on its engineering practices, then withdrew her application. And the next few calls with companies she basically grilled them all and decided against moving forward with 4 of the 6. I told her around then that I feel like she's making a mistake, being so picky, and she's gonna ruin her reputation in the industry if she's going around taking interviews and cutting the process off early. She said she wasn't making any enemies. The companies she dropped had been emailing and calling constantly, wanting to bring her in for another interview or asking her to reconsider. If anything, she was a hotter commodity. I felt she was probably still hurting her reputation long-term, even if her little power play was working for a bit. She said it wasn't a power play, it was professional. She just didn't want to waste anyone's time. But the next interview I overheard started a big argument. One of her final 2 companies had her taking a Zoom interview, and she was laughing it up with an interviewer, and he was telling her this story about how he and his coworkers fell off a barge into the river working on a project. And she was just like, "Wait, they had y'all doing that? Not tied off to anything?" Look, as funny as that is, that's honestly kind of messed up that they put you in danger like that. I'm honestly gonna have to withdraw my application. She got off the phone and said, "Dang, people really tell on themselves if you just listen and smile. Did you hear that?" And I said that I thought she ended it a little prematurely, like didn't even ask if they had changed anything there, just ended the call. I said it felt like she was trying to delay getting a new job. Was she getting cold feet or something? She said no, this is literally how people at her level interview. She was serious about the interview process, and she wasn't interested in walking into a crap show. I said that was BS. She was sabotaging herself on purpose by treating these companies like this who want to hire her. And she was like, "Why do they keep coming back for more then? Like, I'm critical, but I'm not wrong, and they know it." We had this big fight where she insisted that anyone who was at her level of a career interviewing companies to see whether they were worth their time, just as much as the other way around. And I said that was BS. She got mad I was telling her about her own career and said she knew it better. Am I the jerk for arguing with my girlfriend about her interviews? I feel like she's dragging her feet. She says she's interviewing normally for her field. You're the jerk. Stop mansplaining how to interview for a job that you do not do and in a field you do not know. It isn't an issue until it becomes an issue. Yes, I'm assuming OP's gender. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend is actually doing this right. She should be interviewing the company and withdrawing when they don't meet her expectations. They need her. She doesn't need them. I also don't walk into crap shows. I'm at the level and experience I don't have to. Sounds like she's in the same spot. It's also her job, her life, and her decisions on how to manage it. Are you going to work at these jobs with her? No? Keep your nose out of it then. OP. Well, you've convinced me. Plus all of the other comments. I apologized to her and we talked stuff out a little bit. To be honest, it's a lot of culture shock for me. I'm a first-generation college student, and I've never heard someone speak in an interview the way she did. And to be honest, I think I've been kind of hurting over how easy it is for her to go, thanks but no thanks, to roles offering $150,000 to $300,000 yearly. In my field, the most I'll probably ever make is like $70,000, and that's at senior levels. And I feel like I was just so incredulous that anyone would even consider turning down that kind of pay. She makes $160K now, so any of those jobs would have been a great salary. But she's a PE, which means she's liable for whatever work she does and holds herself to a really high ethics standard. And she has real concerns that a bunch of companies she's interviewing with could hurt someone doing what they're doing. Which was also a shock to hear about, to be honest. How a bunch of well-regarded companies are apparently sketchy behind closed doors. Like, I was so caught up in the, how could someone ever reject $200,000 or $300,000 from several top companies, that it didn't really hit me that her concerns were literally dead serious. And I jumped to thinking that she's dragging her feet on moving, which to be honest, might be a bit of an insecurity too. So thanks to everyone who commented, I needed the wake-up call that I was being a jerk, and apparently an idiot at job interviews too. Sounds like she should have vetted you a little better. Stay in your lane. You're the jerk. Forced to move cabins by management. I used to work on cruise ships in the spa. Had been working for a couple years and was pretty good at my job, so I started training to be an assistant manager so I could step up to manager. Mainly for the much nicer work schedule and raise in pay because being a normal spa member was horrible. I was working hard, staying way past when I should have gone home, some days only going to my cabin for a couple of hours just to sleep, so I was hardly in my room ever. Then my roommate's contract ended and I got a new roommate. Let's call her Rita. Rita was Australian and just married. We were cruising the Mediterranean, so in order for her to talk to her husband, she had to call him at very odd times. I didn't mind as she wasn't super loud when chatting with him. The first month we shared a cabin was fine, nothing spectacular but fine. Then she woke up one morning and decided she wanted to try to make my life horrible. I don't know what I did to make her hate me. If I did, I would have wanted to fix it, as living away from your friends and family in such a stressful environment is difficult enough. I don't know, maybe she got cabin fever. So as I said before, I only really went to my cabin to shower and sleep, and that meant my stuff was hardly touched. I had the bottom bunk, so I kept my stuff at the foot of my bed and under a chair I was using as a bedside table. Her stuff, however, was all over the place. She also started being extra noisy whenever I was trying to sleep. We were set up to be on different teams, so a roommate will have some privacy for a couple of hours every time you had some time off, normally in port for a morning 3 times a week. I would start work at 7 a.m. and work until about 10 p.m., some days till past midnight. I was tired when I was in my cabin, but then she would insist on being the most annoying person on earth. She would dry her hair at 2 a.m., watch a movie on loud, drink beer loudly, and be noisy on the top bunk. Then she went lower than I could ever dream. She hooked up with my ex-boyfriend, who I broke up with because he cheated on me while I was there. I was so fed up with her and complained to my manager, who said I just needed to deal with it or date an officer with his own cabin. I was miserable. Then finally we had a cruise where head office was cruising with us to check on standards and launch a new product. I had known this lady for years and she knew me well too. We got along well. One night after dinner, I get called into the office. I thought maybe I was finally getting that promotion. Boy, was I wrong. Head office and my manager had called me in to tell me to move out of my cabin, in which I had been for 7 months with only 2 months to go. Apparently, Rita had gone and told them I was the horrible roommate, that I was being noisy on purpose and being disrespectful. She had even claimed that I stuck her toothbrush in the toilet. Toothbrush was shown to me, and I'd never even seen this toothbrush in my life. Also, it made me worry that maybe she had done this to my toothbrush. I fired back and asked my managers why they would think I would do something so disgusting after knowing me for so long. And they replied, they believed me, but as there's no way to disprove Rita, I had to be the bigger person and move out. I had an hour to pack up and transfer cabins. I was humiliated and heartbroken that someone would be so mean, but then anger kicked in. So I packed up my stuff, but I put on my most annoying music, blocked the toilet, knowing it won't be fixed until the next day, and placed the mattresses outside in the hallway so she would have to fetch it herself. Our cabin was also the only cabin with a mini fridge, and I took that whole thing with me, even though I didn't use it. I left all her stuff in the fridge on the counter and set the thermostat to hot. I had some glitter from parties that I spilled on the carpet and spread all over the floor. Whoops. My maintenance friends also heard of my unfair treatment and took it upon themselves to turn off the hot water in the cabin, and when it was reported, they put it last on the list of things that needed to be fixed. Rita complained about me stealing the fridge, but as it was never hers to begin with, and it was still in a spa cabin, there was nothing she could do. My new roommate was lovely, very happy to have a fridge, and never had a disagreement with me. Rita quit and went home 2 weeks later. Troublesome guest ruins it for everyone else. At our hotel, we have a pool. It's not the biggest or the best pool in the area, but it exists. A few months ago, the pool heater broke, so the pool was ice cold because of the winter temperatures. Our owner ordered a new one back in November within a few days of it not working, but it never arrived. After a few negative reviews about the pool not being heated and the order getting canceled, with no new heater arriving until February at the earliest, management decided to close the pool and take the time to do other things to it and make sure that the other parts are working properly. Less than a week after we closed the pool for this maintenance, I got a call from someone asking the price of a room. Told them the rate, but they didn't like it and said it was cheaper online. Said that if you can find a cheaper rate online, then book it, since I can't honor a rate that you say you found online, but warned them about how those rates have less flexibility and worse cancellation policies. They hung up without saying anything after that. A few minutes later, I see a new reservation come up from a third party with an infamous no cancel rate. For those who don't know, the no cancel rate from third parties is exactly how it sounds. No matter what, you cannot cancel the reservation nor change the dates, regardless of when you booked it. These are some of the cheapest rates you can find, but one of the worst reservations if things change. Bottom line, don't make reservations with this rate unless you know for sure you're going to be there for the dates you put in. Anyway, about 4 hours later, a woman shows up with her 2 kids, saying she's checking in under the no cancel reservation. I check it, and it's registered to 2 adults and 2 kids. As I'm starting to get the registration card printed with our hotel's terms on it, the woman asks what time the pool closes. I explain that it's closed because of our mechanical issues. She gets surprised, tells me in a kind of angry tone she booked the room so her kids can swim before she asks to cancel the reservation so they can go somewhere else. After I tell her that the reservation was a non-cancel reservation and she would not be refunded, she starts getting upset.
What do you mean you can't cancel? I haven't checked in yet, and your pool isn't working.
I'm sorry, if you booked directly through our hotel, then I could cancel. But I can't without you still being charged, as it was through a third party with their specific cancellation rules.
I called a few hours earlier. Why didn't you tell me the pool wasn't open? I wouldn't have booked otherwise.
It was a slow night, and I only had one phone call, so I knew she was the one who had just asked for room rates and wanted us to book it for cheaper than online. I was the one who talked to you, and you never asked about the pool, just the rate. We got disconnected after I said if you find a cheaper rate online to book it there, and I didn't have a way to contact you otherwise.
Well, either open the pool or I'm leaving. I expect a refund if I leave, or I'm going to leave a bad review.
Even if I wanted to at that point, I couldn't open the pool since we drained it the night before. I just said to her again that she is not getting refunded, so she can either stay the night or go somewhere else and still get charged the night. She left, but not before saying that she will be calling corporate. Sure enough, less than 10 minutes later, corporate does call and ask for my side. I tell them that she booked a no-cancel reservation after we couldn't honor a rate she saw in a third party, and that's why we aren't refunding her. They asked about the pool situation, and I told them that it was indeed closed, but the guest didn't ask about it, so I didn't warn her over the phone. The person actually laughed, saying if he had $1 for every time he got a call about an issue that wouldn't be one if the guest asked the hotel in advance, he wouldn't need to work. I laughed back and asked if he needed any more information. He didn't and said he'll tell the guest she isn't getting a refund and they needed to talk to the third-party site, not our hotel's brand corporate. An hour after we hung up, I get a call from third party asking about the reservation. Usually third parties kind of ask in a demanding way that we refund the guests, or ask to refund them, which upsets me, but this person didn't. He just asked one single, normally, like he was required to ask, and verified that it is a no cancel on my end. I confirmed, and he was like, "That's what I thought. Thank you," and hung up. I know I'm preaching to the choir with y'all, but book directly. It's the only way to have flexibility and to cancel, even after the hotel's cancellation policy if they make an exception. And especially if you're staying somewhere because of an amenity, make sure that it's open before you book. Whether you think I'm in the wrong or the guest, it doesn't matter. I'm not a heartless jerk, as someone DM'd me saying. I did feel for them, but there was nothing that I could really do about it. There was no way of notifying the guest that the pool was down unless I said that in the first second of the call. You can hate me because of this story. I don't care anymore. I don't need to explain every little detail of what happened for your amusement, especially since it seems half of you are trolls or want to stir up crap. Am I the jerk for changing the locks on my house after my fiance made a key without my permission? I, 25 female, own a beautiful 4-bedroom house. I bought it when I was 23 after letting my business partner take our shared assets in exchange for $600,000. We owned a few properties together since we had bought our first place at 20 and 21 back when we were dating, and even though we didn't work out, we stayed in business together. I closed on my house a few months after my 23rd birthday. I had only been working part-time while I was managing our properties, so aside from my bed and some little things from my apartment, I stayed in my house for months while it was basically empty. I had always wanted to be a pastry chef, and a local community college has a program that lets you get your certificate in almost anything for free with just 16 weeks of classes, and if you choose to continue afterward, your credits will roll over. That's where I met my fiance, James, who's 27. James was a chef at a high-end restaurant. He had been working since 16. He started as a busser and worked his way up. While he had a lot of experience, he wanted to have a degree to back it up. We hit it off pretty quickly. He even taught me how to drive, helped me develop recipes, and helped me pick out the perfect spot to put my bakery. He proposed to me in Jamaica on August 8, 2022. When we got back home, I moved in with him. I've been perfecting recipes in my house as I had taken the time to make the kitchen to my liking. I tend to put my phone on Do Not Disturb just to make sure I have no distractions. There have been a few times when I've missed calls from James, and I see that it really bothers him, but it's not like I go at random times. I have a set schedule, and I rarely go off of it. About a week ago, I finished baking quite early and ended up taking a nap. My phone was still on Do Not Disturb, and I woke up to James banging on the door. He told me he had been calling me for hours. I told him I had forgotten to take my phone off Do Not Disturb. He suggested that if he should have a key, he could use it for emergencies or in case something like this happened again. I said no because this is my safe space and I'm still adjusting to living with someone. The other day when I finished baking, I noticed it was raining and I decided to call James because I don't feel comfortable driving in the rain. He didn't call me when he got here. He knocked on the door, and when I opened it, he complained about getting wet while waiting for me and said he wouldn't have to wait if he had had a key. I pointed out that he could have called me and I would have just come to the car. He said that wasn't the point, and me not giving him a key was a slap in the face. Yesterday, I noticed he had one of those minute keys in his glove compartment while looking for my lip gloss. I left it in his car, and I immediately knew what he did and called my brother to help me change the locks. Last night at dinner, I let him know I found the key and told him it wouldn't be of any use since I had changed the locks. We argued, and we haven't spoken since last night. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. You for not trusting your fiance enough to give him a key, and him for breaking your trust and making one without permission. You better get a rock-solid prenup protecting that house as a premarital asset if you still want to go through with the marriage, because it's going to go from your house to both of yours otherwise. Everyone sucks here. Your fiance should respect your boundaries. However, if you don't trust him enough to let him into your safe space, maybe you need to consider not getting married to him or being engaged yet. If you're going to spend your lives together, you should probably feel comfortable living with him. It sounds like you're pretty young and haven't known him that long. If you're not there yet, you need to have a conversation with him and be upfront about how you're feeling, why you feel that way, and how you think you can move forward as a couple, and be prepared for him to be upset or have his own opinions. It sounds like there's a bigger issue here than a house key. Everyone sucks here. He shouldn't have made the key without your permission, and you made it very clear he didn't have your permission. At the same time, this is your fiance and you live with him. Why on earth wouldn't you trust him with a key to your house? especially when he has only asked for one in response to actual situations where it was problematic that he didn't have one. Your relationship seems very one-sided and, from the looks of it, may soon be very one-personed. You're the jerk. If I told my fiancée that she couldn't have a key to my extra house because it's my safe space while living in her home and using her resources the whole time, I wouldn't have a fiancé. The fact that he asked more than once for a key and you said no really makes me question your motives as well as your ability to have a real relationship with your fiancé. Trust and communication are the foundation of any healthy relationship, and you aren't very good at either. Am I the jerk for telling my mom the wrong name and embarrassing her? My husband and I had a baby last week. We announced to our close family and friends that we were pregnant at 11 weeks along. We said that we would be waiting to share until I was further along. My mother ignored us and posted our pregnancy news on her social media immediately. We got congratulations messages from dozens of people. When we learned that she had shared it, we told her to delete it as it was not her news to share. She argued, saying things like, "I'm the grandma. It's absolutely my news to share. You can't tell me what I can and cannot post online," and so on. She finally took down her post after we begged and begged her. Skip to 20 weeks along, we were asked what his name was going to be. When we said we weren't going to share, no one complained except my mom. She constantly asked and would try to trip us up. After 3 weeks of her asking 3 to 4 times a day what her baby's name is, I decided to tell her that the baby's name is John. That's not true, but I wanted her to stop asking what his name was going to be. I then told her that she must keep it fully confidential and that no one else can know his name until he was born. I figured that she would leave it be and not tell anyone. That was a mistake. My mom, aunts, and cousins threw us a baby shower. Everything seemed normal except for a few people whispering and pointing at the gifts. I didn't think anything of it until I began opening the gifts. The first gifts were gifts from our registry. Then I got a gift from my cousin of a set of monogrammed blankets and pillows. I was confused as we hadn't said what the baby's name or initials were. I then opened my aunt's gift, which was a decorative frame with the name John. I got upset and my mom grinned. My mom then stood up, shushed the room, and said, "I know OP wasn't going to share it until after, but the baby's name is John." It was awkward. Everyone looked confused. Those who my mom had already told stood around looking smug. I got up and whispered to her that we were not going to name the baby John. I had told her that so she would stop pressuring me to share the name. My mom's face got red and she mumbled something and left, along with many of my aunts and cousins on her side. The party was pretty much ruined after this, so I returned the personalized gifts and went home. I received calls from my mom's side saying that it was awful to embarrass my mom. My husband said she wouldn't have been embarrassed if she had kept the name private. Our baby came a few days after his due date. All of this drama has caused a lot of stress with my mom and family on her side. My husband, dad, and in-laws are incredibly supportive and have been gushing over our baby. My mom and her side have been saying rude things about us to the rest of the family. Am I the jerk for telling my mom the wrong name and embarrassing her in front of her family? Was it wrong to hide the real name? Not the jerk. Your mother has continued to prove that she is untrustworthy and selfish. Clearly, you didn't want to be in a position to have to lie to her, but she was being relentless. Not the jerk. I'm sorry your mom has so little respect for you and your privacy, and congrats on the baby. Would I be the jerk if I went to my daughter's birthday party? My oldest daughter is turning 8, and her dad's family, we've been divorced almost 2 years, is throwing her a pool party at our community center. Her dad and I are on minimal speaking terms. Not my choice. He chooses not to get along with me. And he is recently engaged, and his fiancée is pregnant. I barely know her. I used to be very close to his entire family. They're tight-knit, as my ex and I were high school sweethearts. But since the split, I'm very low contact except with his mom, who will always hold that mom number 2 place in my heart. And even then, I only see her when my kids are involved. My daughter invited me to her party, and I want to go because she wants me there. Her dad told me he would pick her up from my house and take her and her little sister to the party, so I mentioned that she had invited me to come. He responds that it's the first time his fiancés and his families will be meeting, and he won't say no to me coming, but asked me to respectfully decline my daughter's invitation. The day of her birthday, my daughters will be with me and we will celebrate, but it won't be a big party with her friends, etc. What would make me the jerk here? Declining and potentially hurting my daughter's feelings, which is not what I want to do, or attending and possibly making adults act like adults? Update. I also messaged him. Although I'm pretty disappointed that you've chosen your fiancé over your daughter's birthday wishes, I told her that she will have one celebration with each parent this year. I hope all of her future events will be about her and not about your fiancé, in-laws, or anyone else, quite frankly, and I can attend in peace. Have a good evening. I won't engage if he responds, but he gets to know these celebrations won't be about anyone but our daughter from now on. My ex actually told my daughter the sentiment behind my last message to him. She called me asking why I think dad values his fiancé over her. What the heck? I had her promptly put him on the phone for a conversation about what's appropriate for kids to understand about grown-up disagreements. He disagreed, while stating that she doesn't understand social nuances of the party invitation while thinking she should be privy to my message. He also said his point about the introduction was just an excuse for me not to come. In the end, I told him to not throw me or his fiancé under the bus when he could just say to me, "You're not welcome, don't come," and then apologize to my daughter for her getting more involved than necessary in an adult misunderstanding. Why did I ever have kids with that man? Not the jerk. Divorced dad here with kids. It's not about you or your husband, it's about your daughter. Honestly, if his daughter wants her mom there, the father should put his feelings aside and welcome you for the sake of his daughter. It's called co-parenting. He should want to make his daughter happy, especially on her birthday. The fact that he's not doing this speaks volumes for his character. Also, using a kid's birthday party to have the two families meet for the first time is weird to me. That's just one more thing that takes the attention away from the birthday girl. You're the jerk if you attend. I understand not wanting to hurt your daughter's feelings, but take this time to make it a teaching moment. I'm divorced as well, and I always respect my ex's wishes if he asks me not to come to a family event that's about the kids. Unfortunately, this is the way life is now. You don't speak to his family anymore, so there's no reason, other than your daughter, to go. You're taking her to do something fun on her birthday, and that's enough. Am I the jerk if I get mad over my husband not doing the dishes? I'm female 24, and my husband is male 22. We've been married officially and living together for 3 months now. It's been great, but one major issue we have is the dishes. Now, I don't want to play the sympathy card, but recently I've been working 55-hour weeks and he's only working 35 to 40. I know it doesn't seem like much, but most nights I come home exhausted or sick from something I picked up at work to make dinner and run the budget, things like that. And when I come home, he's playing guitar, video games, or watching TV. When we first moved in together, we had an agreement that if I cook, he'll do the dishes. But recently, it's been all on me to cook, to do dishes, to clean the entire kitchen while he does the bare minimum. Yes, he can organize things and take out bins once or twice a week, but it is still not enough. I brought it up recently that I'm feeling overwhelmed, and he told me that me asking him to do the dishes every day annoys him, since his mom used to volunteer him to do dishes when he lived with her and nagged him for hours on end until it was done. She also cut off his bedroom electric if he didn't do the dishes. He says he feels he chips in more than enough. I told him he's a grown man with his own house, and if he's not willing to share chores, then I'll stop doing my part, and he'll see how much I actually do compared to him. So I've stopped doing dishes. 3 days in, and the sink is full and the kitchen stinks. Apparently, it makes me the jerk, according to him and our friends, but I feel like I need to stand my ground. Am I the problem? Not the jerk, but this is exactly why people should live together before marriage. You find this stuff out much sooner. He should be doing more, that much is obvious. Problem is, he doesn't care. Telling him you won't do anything has had no effect. Talking has had no effect. So how far are you willing to go? How much of a deal breaker is this for you? That's what you need to think about. Not the jerk. Should ask him if he thought you married a husband or adopted a pet. If he isn't willing to pull his weight as a husband, then you will be returning him to the pound. OP. Part of me is glad I've lost my pregnancies before now. Couldn't in this moment imagine him as a father. Not the jerk. Is it too late to get the marriage annulled? He doesn't want to be an adult or a team player. He wants you to be his new mummy that looks after him but doesn't give him chores to do. I don't see this marriage lasting. Honestly, maybe you'll be embarrassed to let people know you made a mistake, but it's better than living with that mistake for the next 60 years, and you need better friends. Edit. Also, it should have been a big red flag when his own mother had to find extreme measures to get him to be an adult, just to do the dishes. It wasn't like she was making him clean the whole house. It was just the dishes. You're the jerk. Since everyone here is assuming you're telling us the whole story, when it's obvious you're leaving quite a bit out, I'm going with you're the jerk. If your husband told the story, I can guarantee you his version would sound very different than yours. The only question is, who are we going to believe? And let's be honest, since this is Reddit, everyone will assume you're the one telling the truth. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for trying to get my girlfriend to exercise? I, 26 female, am in pretty good shape. I jog every day, and eating healthy is pretty important to me. I also follow a low-carb diet for health reasons. I used to have horrible IBS and mood swings. My girlfriend, Elle, who's 28 female, also eats fairly healthy overall, but I do most of the cooking. Before we got together, Elle mostly just ordered takeout and didn't cook much. We got together, and she's pretty happy overall with our eating habits because I'm a good cook, but she still buys processed junk food and less healthy items and keeps them around the house. I also bake a lot, and Elle is always happy to try what I make. Last year, I proposed to Elle, and she said yes. We're now in the stages of wedding planning. Recently, I noticed that Elle had gained some weight, and I'm a little worried about her health. Early on in our relationship, things were closed because of lockdown, and so we went on a lot of hikes together, and we used to go for walks multiple mornings a week. This, plus the fact that I was cooking for us and she was eating less takeout and processed food, led to her losing about 15 pounds by accident. She wasn't overweight, but had gained some due to lockdown, lost some, and after meeting me had lost the rest. I know living a sedentary lifestyle has its health consequences, and it really isn't good for you. I really love Elle, and I want her to be around for a long time. I feel like it's partially my fault that she's gaining weight, because we used to go for more hikes and walks together. But then I started jogging in place every morning while watching TV. It got too hot over the summer to walk, and I wanted more exercise. So now, instead of us going for a walk, I'm there jogging while Elle just sits and watches TV with me. I love Elle and find her very beautiful. I just worry about her health and her not getting enough exercise. Every now and then I suggest she jog in place with me, or I'll send her on an errand to the grocery store so she can at least get a little walk in, and she's happy to go get things, but doesn't ever jog with me. Today, I tried to tell her that I was worried about her health, and she got upset. I don't think I said anything bad. I told her how much I love her and how I want her to be around, but I'm worried that she doesn't get enough exercise. She took it fairly well, but was very quiet and seemed kind of sad. Later, I got an angry text from Elle's stepsister saying that I was shaming her and calling me a horrible person. Am I the jerk here? Edit. Okay, I see how everyone is focusing on the weight thing, and I'm sorry if that's how it might have come off. My main concern is Elle's sedentary lifestyle. She sits around all day for work, and some days we don't even leave the house. I apologize if I came off as being judgmental about what she eats or weighs. This has nothing to do with what she eats or how she looks. Her eating habits have gotten much better since we got together, and I don't care if she eats carbs or some junk food here and there. I'm simply concerned because her life got a lot more sedentary and she started to gain some weight. My main concern is the sedentariness. If she were the same weight, but more actively moving around and getting her heart going, I wouldn't be saying anything. Just the weight gain was what made me notice how sedentary her life had gotten. You're the jerk. You're watching your fiance's weight and not her soul. Get your crap together before you lose her forever. Why do you care about her health if she isn't overweight? This is a thinly veiled attempt to cover the fact that you have a problem with her figure. This thread disgusts me. You're the jerk. Yes, there's health benefits to exercise. Jogging in place isn't fun, and it's not really a bonding activity. Go for walks again. Change up your routine in the summer if you have to, but for goodness sake, don't send her to run busy errands like a kid because you think she needs to get off her butt. Did I miss the part where you're also her doctor? You're the jerk. Don't pretend it's her health you're concerned about. She lost weight while with you, and you preferred that version of her physically. Leave her health concerns to the medical professionals in her life. You're the jerk. Is Elle's doctor telling you she's in danger? Are you a doctor? Are you shallow? Or are you honestly tricked by diet culture and you think that saying, for her health, is anything other than a phobia? Not the jerk, but these conversations never go well. I hate the shaming label used anytime someone tries to talk about weight. There's a huge difference. Are we just never supposed to say anything about weight ever again? Ridiculous. You want to encourage a healthy lifestyle, which is good, but you're going to find very few people interested in jogging in place while watching TV. You'll have better luck compromising and doing things together again that will appeal to her. Also, maybe back off on the baking. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
If Reddit Boy tried to encourage me to be more active, I'd probably agree. We sit here reading stories all day.
10 minutes late, and it cost them a fortune. Bobby was a CNC machinist, a good one, and the only one. The company he worked for made an intricate product, and his CNC part was crucial. The rest of the product bolted onto it. The finished product sold for tens of thousands of dollars. It took 3 hours to make this piece. Bobby would make 3 a day. He'd make one in the morning, take his coffee break, then make another, and take his lunch break. That ate up 6.75 hours. He'd stay late to make the third part and make 2 hours overtime. His new foreman turned out to be more than a bit of a jerk. He tried to get Bobby to do other tasks, and Bobby said no, as he needed to monitor the CNC machine during all stages of the cycle. Foreman complained to plant manager, who then told him to back off and leave Bobby alone. One day there was a bad snowstorm, and Bobby was 10 minutes late. The foreman was there to greet him at the time clock with a grin on his face, holding a demerit slip. Bobby had clocked in a minute late the previous week, and the union rule said that if you were late twice within 14 days, you got 20 demerit points. Bobby and foreman got into a bit of an animated conversation, and the union steward came over and said that Bobby had no choice but to take the demerit hit. So Bobby went to work. His shift was 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but he usually stayed until 6:30 to finish the last part. Not today. At 4:30, he shut the machine down and headed for the door. The next morning, foreman comes over and says that the assembly team is short a part. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it right now. It'll be done in 2 hours. But they need 3 a day. Why didn't you make 3 of them yesterday? Because my shift is over at 4:30 and I went home. What? You stay every night until the third part is finished. Bobby pulled the demerit slip out of his shirt pocket, looked foreman in the eye and said, not anymore. Bobby had done the math. Every week, instead of getting 15 parts, they were getting 10 or 11. Foreman tried to sweep it under the rug, but within a few days, chaos ensued. The assemblers had no core part, and their team went to the plant manager to let him know that production was falling. The assemblers liked it. They got to hang around yakking while they waited for the next CNC part to arrive. Eventually, there was a meeting with plant manager, union steward, and Bobby. Foreman tried to throw Bobby under the bus, saying that he refused overtime. Union steward pointed out that, as per the contract, mandatory overtime was only in case of emergencies, and this wasn't an emergency. Bobby had every right to decline the OT. Foreman lost his temper, started yelling at Bobby and union steward, and was asked to leave the meeting. Plant manager knew he was done for and looked at Bobby and asked, "What's it going to take to get you to work the overtime?" Bobby smiled and replied, "As long as foreman is my supervisor, I won't be working a minute of overtime." And that was the last anyone saw of foreman. By sticking to the contract, Bobby cost the company a handful of parts worth many thousands of dollars and put the company into a position where their lowered production would cost them even more in perpetuity. Bobby worked a couple of Saturdays to catch up and made double time for those shifts. They hired a new foreman who was explicitly instructed, do not, under any circumstances, mess with Bobby. Am I the jerk for calling my sister cruel for her tattoo idea? Sister is 28. I'm 26, male. My sister, N, has always had a strained relationship with our parents, especially my mom. I'm clearly not privy to the reasons because things are fine with me and my parents. When N went to college, she met her creative writing professor as a freshman and they got close immediately. They would do a lot together and worked closely on a few different writing projects. N never specifically said this, but it was obvious to anyone who saw them interact that they had a substitute mother-daughter type relationship, which hurt my mom a lot to see. I always thought she'd grow out of it or that the professor would move on, but 10 years later, they were still very close. About a month ago, the professor passed unexpectedly, and it really devastated N. She was really depressed over the holidays, which of course was all in front of my mom, and was a difficult reminder that N loved the professor as a mother way more than she ever loved my mom as a mother. She still talks to my parents and stuff, and they don't fight or anything, but N is very distant and doesn't tell them anything about her life beyond the bare minimum. My mom tried to comfort N, but N was doing her distance thing and didn't want the comfort. Something unfortunate that happened to N is that when she got the call that she had passed, she was brewing tea, and in the shock of the news, she spilled the water on her arm, which left a mark on her wrist. I think the burn was like on the borderline of a second or third degree, and definitely still looked pretty rough during the holidays. In said it was especially hard because in addition to the physical pain, every time she looks at it, she's reminded of the moment that she found out the professor had passed, which I totally get. I was on FaceTime with In, and she said she talked to her tattoo artist friend, who said that the burn should be able to heal well enough to get a tattoo over it. In then explicitly told me about her idea, which is a type of flower that the professor gave her a bouquet of for her undergrad graduation. My mom was so embarrassed that day because she didn't get In flowers, but the professor did, and In was parading them around so happy, and it was a reminder of their connection. I guess In and the professor exchanged these flowers for every special occasion, like birthdays, etc. So now she wants to get a decent-sized tattoo in a highly visible spot of something that will remind everyone of the professor. I told In that this seemed really cruel to my mom, who already feels cast aside and like she's in exile from In. And that's without the constant permanent reminder. In kind of scoffed and said, "I can't believe you think you have the right to tell me not to do this," called me a jerk and hung up, and is still not talking to me except for a very brief text saying, "Congrats for a promotion I just got." My parents aren't commenting. My dad said I should have just kept quiet, even though he agrees, and my mom made no comment but seemed grateful I stood up for her. I feel like I was just being protective of my mom. Am I the jerk? What you have described is the golden child and scapegoat kid. You being the golden child. In didn't get what she needed from her own mother, and she was incredibly fortunate that another stepped in and took on that role. Take your blinders off and see. Ask your sister if she felt second best growing up, and be open and silent when and to what she tells you. Yes, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Not much else to say other than it's okay for people to have meaningful connections to humans in life who aren't their parents and honor them and that connection however they want. It's not her problem to deal with her mother's pain or feeling left out. You're the jerk. Mind your own business. Your mom being embarrassed because she forgot to buy her daughter flowers is her own darn problem. We can all tell you were mommy's golden child from this post. Your poor sister. Not the jerk. Ignore all of these people insulting you and calling you names like golden child. Most of these people don't have good relationships with their parents, so they take out their anger on those who do. They also look for excuses to play the victim card, and calling you a golden child helps them feel better about their sad lives. The fact is, you love your mom, and you're just trying to look out for her. I assure you these people insulting you don't even love their parents, probably because mommy and daddy refuse to pay for their liberal arts degrees. Oh, you're also a man trying to get your sister to show compassion to your mother. Reddit absolutely cannot stand these sorts of scenarios. They think it's wrong of men to guide or lead others, which is why the US leads the world in fatherless homes at 23%. Gee, maybe this is why we also lead the world in mental illness. Just like a classroom needs structure, so do our homes and families. When you have a society where fathers cannot play the role they've played for thousands of years, our current society is what you end up with. And it's exactly what certain groups in power have been working towards for a long time. Why? Because sick people who are hurting, lack direction, angry, bitter, unintelligent, and financially illiterate are the easiest ones to manipulate, control, and capitalize on. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. Freak out over my child-free wedding? Okay, prepare to be embarrassed. My sister got married last summer. She had a very elegant and beautiful wedding and reception planned. It was child-free. She sent gracious notes to everyone who sent their regrets and thanked them for understanding her desires for her wedding and respecting them enough to RSVP in the negative. She also invited them to a party later that summer at her home if they wanted to take pictures with her and her wedding party in their fancy clothes. I thought it was well handled and classy. Several people did not understand the meaning of child-free and brought their kids anyways. One screamed through the ceremony, and the mom would not leave the chapel because she did not want to cause a fuss. There were no extra places for them at the reception, so their parents had to share their food with them. The worst was the kid that wanted a cupcake off the table the wedding cake was on. He tipped the wedding cake onto the floor. My dad saved it, but there was a handprint on the lowest tier and a lot of cupcakes hit the floor. All in all, it was 4 families that brought uninvited kids. My wedding invitations just went out over Christmas. We're getting married in May. I know this is a long time, but we have a lot of out-of-town, country, and even continent guests we hope will come. We did not invite these families to our wedding. We have a Facebook group for the wedding for people to share pictures and memories that we might want to put in the wedding video. They found out about the group and posted to my personal page about being excluded and asking why we're not inviting them. I messaged them privately and asked them to take down their posts and explain that my wedding was smaller and I wasn't having as many guests as my sister. They went public again and complained about me excluding them for no good reason. So I posted the receipts. I posted a video my cousin sent me of the kid crying during the ceremony and the parents doing nothing. The video of the kid freaking out because he had to share trout for supper. The before and after pictures of the wedding cake table. And I also asked if they knew in advance that they were not supposed to bring their kids to the wedding. Then everyone started piling on them. I guess there was a lot of stuff I missed, including one of them changing a kid on the table with the guest book because the closest bathroom did not have a baby station. Now they're all calling me a jerk for embarrassing them for having kids and wanting to be part of family events. I said that they could not understand why rules were in place and that is why they're not invited. My uncle posted about how embarrassed he was that his daughter was one of these entitled jerks and offered to pay my sister for the cake that got wrecked. He had been unable to attend the wedding and hadn't heard about the cake. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They tried to call you out publicly for making a decision about your wedding, and you just met them where they were. They sound horrible. No wonder you don't want them at your wedding. Not the jerk. They tried to publicly shame you for not inviting them when they could have just messaged you privately and avoided the embarrassment. They don't get to try to publicly embarrass someone only to then get upset when it gets turned right back around on them. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That they're, in the midst of all of this, still trying to justify why they brought their kids, despite explicitly being asked not to, only underlines even more that you did the right thing. Though a bit of advice, you may want to consider having some bouncers at the door to your ceremony and reception should they try to crash. Judging from all of this, it seems like that's at least a possibility. Am I the jerk for sending my partner to work with a lettuce sandwich for lunch? So I'm 28, male, and my partner, 32, male, works full-time in construction. He makes decent money because he's like a supervisor, but he's very busy. He leaves the house by 5 a.m. every morning. I work a little doing some freelance document translation from home, but it's probably about 10 to 15 hours a week. I mainly make sure the house is in order and that my partner has everything he needs. Clean clothes, packed lunch, dinner made, house stocked, etc. It's just the two of us. We don't have kids or pets. He does housework too, mainly outdoor things like lawn care or fixing anything that breaks. Anyway, I usually go grocery shopping on Fridays. So this morning I went to make his lunch and we didn't have that much. We were out of lunch meat, so I improvised. I sent him a lettuce sandwich. It was a thick layer of iceberg lettuce with tomato, onion, cucumber, Swiss cheese, and mayo on a large Kaiser roll bun. And then I sent a Tupperware of these seasoned, crunchy chickpeas that I make in the oven, 2 Linder chocolate balls, and a can of flavored fizzy water. I thought it seemed like a decent lunch. Anyway, my mom used to make lettuce sandwiches when we didn't have money. Well, he texted me that he was mad. He said, "What is this? It's just lettuce." I said we didn't have any meat, and I was just trying to put something together in the morning before grocery shopping. He said, "This is not a lunch. I'm going to be hungry all day now. It's fine if we didn't have anything, but just tell me and I'll order in a lunch. Now it's too late to order anything because you made me think I had an actual lunch, but it's just lettuce." In general, he's not one of those carnivore men who just eats meat at every meal, but we do usually have meat. His job can be stressful, so I just apologized and said I'd do that next time. He didn't respond, but now like 3 hours later, he just texted, "Yeah, you're sorry, but you don't really know what it's like to have to do hours of physical work on an empty stomach." I didn't respond, but now I'm feeling a little annoyed with him. Like, does he really have an empty stomach? It was a lunch after all. He's pretty big, like 6 foot, 220 pounds, basically no fat on him. So maybe he does need more. I don't know. In general, I know he works very hard and I get to have a relatively stress-free life. So I feel bad making his day harder than it has to be. But I feel like he's kind of exaggerating. Anyway, it's not going to be a big issue, and I already went to the store and I'm making homemade bacon double cheeseburgers and fresh cut fries for dinner. But I was just wondering if it's really so bad to send a lettuce sandwich for lunch. Edit. So the man is fed and happy. I didn't bring it up or act angry or anything, I just let it go, and he did apologize on his own after dinner. He basically said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to be a jerk about lunch. But yeah, next time, just let me know if we're out of meat and I'll order some food." And I just said, "Yeah, sorry about that. My brain probably wasn't fully functioning that early." And that was it. Now we're chilling on the couch together, so all good. Oh, and the people wondering why I didn't have food in the house, this man housed an entire tray of enchiladas for dinner yesterday that I was expecting to have leftovers to send for lunch today. I was gonna send that with a salad, not on bread, and some crackers and the chocolates. That's why I was at a bit of a loss this morning. Anyway, thanks for the responses. Lots of not the jerks, but you're the jerks from people who have actually been in my partner's situation, so I'll just be more mindful of that going forward. Thanks all. Not the jerk. It's not a lettuce sandwich, it's a cheese salad sandwich. Not the jerk. He shouldn't be taking this out on you. You prepared him a lovely, hearty vegetarian meal. A couple slices of ham aren't going to change the impact of that meal overly much. He's being a baby and owes you an apology. You need to apologize or I won't be making your lunches going forward. But it was a cheese sandwich. I mean, a cheese sandwich with a bunch of bonus stuff, but still. I've had so many cheese sandwiches in my life. I think you could have let him know that you'd packed him a cheese sandwich if he normally has meat sandwiches, but not the jerk on packing a perfectly normal lunch of a cheese sandwich. No jerks here. I agree that the lunch was tiny for someone who works construction. That job is extremely physically demanding, and most people I know who do this kind of work eat big lunches because it makes you very hungry. So yes, you did not give him enough food, but you didn't do it intentionally. His reaction was a bit over the top, but I get it. In the moment when you're very hungry, you're looking forward to a nice lunch, and it's a shock to discover you have a lot less than you expected. Just ask him how much he needs for lunch and take this to heart. Not the jerk. Your partner is free to make his own lunches. Edit. To everyone arguing with me, I totally agree that OP should help out with their share, considering their partner bears the brunt of the finances. OP's partner's reaction was way over the top, and anyone who doesn't agree with that, I question how you treat others as well. I'd say my vote is probably more between not the jerk and everyone sucks here, as OP could have said, "Hey, we are a little light on groceries, so would you rather grab something out versus me making your lunch?" Am I the jerk for telling my sister her baby's name is stupid? I, 21 female, found out not too long ago that my sister, B, who's 36, is pregnant after a long struggle with infertility, and I'm pumped and can't wait to be an aunt. Last week was the gender reveal party where B broke down crying after cutting the cake and seeing that it was pink inside. Her and her husband are thrilled because they apparently wanted a girl. She said right then that the baby would be named Mary. For reference, B is a born-again Christian. She found Jesus during her third time in rehab. She'll go on and on to anyone who will listen about how she had visions of the Virgin Mary by her bedside telling her that she would get better, that the pain was temporary, and how she would do great things after recovering. That was 8 years ago. She met her husband not long after that, in church, of course, and fell head over heels in love, saying that God made them for each other. I kind of just rolled my eyes at the declaration. Mary is just so old and boring. B asked me what was wrong. I was honest and told her that I thought the name was a little boring. At least she could do something like Miriam and make Mary a nickname. It's 2023. Kids will make fun of her for having an old lady name once she's older. I myself have an old lady name. Think Edith or something, and it's a pain. Kids in grade school constantly called me Grandma Edith and the sort, saying that I was destined to be an old hag who would live in the woods and have a crooked nose. I'm also worried for the baby. B isn't a reliable person. She's been sober for years, and everyone still walks on eggshells around her. She used to run off to go on binges all the time, a few times leaving me home alone as a kid so that she could go get some more while our parents were out. She brought it up a few days ago, mentioning how she was hurt I didn't like the name, and asked if I was being honest in my feelings. I told her I was. Mary is a stupid name. She'll get bullied in school for it, or at the very least, if she goes to some kind of Christian school, it'll confuse the crap out of her because every other girl will be called Mary. She called me cruel and a jerk and accused me of hating her and not caring that she was finally in a good place in life, as if she hasn't been in a good place in life before and relapsed, leaving our parents in debt, paying for therapy and rehab that don't work, and letting us clean up all of her messes over and over again. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Mary is a perfectly normal name. Your suggestion of Miriam sounds a lot more old-fashioned to me. Regardless, you were extremely rude to your sister. Not the jerk. Honestly, you're right. It's 2023, and sadly, you still have people naming their babies things like John and Mary. But considering the fact that she is a Christian, good luck trying to talk any sense into her. This is why I spend so much time on Reddit. People who comment here are usually smart enough to not do the whole God thing, and it shows because of how intelligent we are. Am I the jerk for abruptly quitting my volunteer work with pelicans? I study zoology in university, and as part of our degree, we're supposed to get a certain amount of field experience. Also, most good zoos and animal internships demand it. So when our ornithology professor mentioned a volunteer opportunity with pelicans through some local group, I thought that sounded cool and I signed up and was one of 2 students chosen. It was supposed to be the 2 of us and a professional helping to band young pelicans for research. Whenever you slip a little band around their ankle, that's unobtrusive to the birds, but useful for tracking purposes. So the 3 of us got out to the island for a long day of pelican banding. The professional showed us how to do it and how to deal with an uncooperative pelican, and then I gave it a try on one and I did it right. But then the 3rd pelican I tried it on threw up all over me as I was doing it. I let it go and started gagging and really felt nauseated. My whole lap and shirt were covered in it and the smell was horrendous. I just sat there retching and trying to wipe it off, but to not much avail. After a few minutes, the professional said, "Hey, come on, we've got a lot more to do. I've been thrown up on 2 already, nothing to worry about." But I said, "No, I'm not going to get thrown up on 10 more times today while doing this. I can't handle that." He got annoyed and said, "Really? You're going to leave 3 people's work with just 2 people for the day? We said it would be messy work." I thought, well, not this messy. So I just sort of sat there for a few hours while they worked and tried to distract myself from the vomit-stained shirt with my phone until it was time to leave. The trip back was crappy too. They both stunk so bad I couldn't take it. Needless to say, my professor is mad at me, but I'm not sure what I was supposed to do. I would have gotten sick myself if I had kept at it, so I feel like I did the best I could. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk, and probably in the wrong field. Maybe switch to paleontology. No throwing up when they're fossilized. You're the jerk. You were there being stinky all day anyway, but instead of being useful, you messed around on your phone. The whole point of field work is to show you what doing the job in the real world would look like. Sounds like you found out that you're studying in the wrong field and need to adjust your sails. My neighbors cut down our trees to improve their view. So I live with my parents as I'm only 14, and my parents decided they wanted a holiday house that they can work on and use to get away from life. When we moved in, we talked to the neighbors. On one side is the nice neighbors, a lovely couple who have just moved into their first house, and on the other side are the entitled neighbors who rent their house to any people who want to have parties. When we look around the garden, we see 3 very tall trees, healthy trees which have probably taken about 200 years to grow. And as we are on a dip, these trees block the view of the house on the other side of the dip very well from seeing into my parents' room and bathroom, which doesn't have curtains on the windows. I think you can see what's about to happen. We have to go back to our other house so my mom can go back to work when my mom got a call from the nice neighbors and this conversation ensued. "Hey, you need to come back here right now. The entitled neighbors are on your property with chainsaws and I don't know what they're planning to do." Wait, what? Can you stop them? I'm so sorry, but my ferry is about to leave and I need to go to work. However, I can call the police if you want. I know all of them very well, so they'll come quickly. Yes, please. I'll get my dad to get on the next ferry and get there as fast as he can. However, when the police got there, they were gone. I had just gotten out of school, and because my dad needed to pick me up, I went with him to see what had happened. When we got there, we see this view. The 3 trees are gone, and what is left are 3 very hacked-at tree stumps and some glass. They had cut down our trees and in the process smashed parts of the glass wall around the deck. Hearing chainsaws, we look over. There's no fence yet. We see 3 mid-30s men cutting wood up, probably for firewood. This is when the entitlement really starts. "Hey, why did you cut down our trees?" "Oh, hey, We were just looking over to your side and noticed that if these trees fell, it could really mess up your house. And being new neighbors, we thought we should do the neighborly thing of cutting them down for you. A sort of new neighbors helping each other out."
What? Those trees were really healthy. Also, you trespassed and cut down our tree without our consent.
"We're calling the cops on you."
The neighbor got so angry at my dad for saying that.
"What the heck, dude? We improved your view and made sure the trees wouldn't hit your house. We helped you. Why call the police on us?"
Now my dad hates being called dude. Also, he's a lot stronger and bigger than they are. So he just walked inside while I stayed standing there, not really knowing what to do. Then the oldest, like 40 years old, looks at me and says,
"Hey, sweetie, if you stop your dad from calling the police, we'll give you an ice cream."
I just turned around and walked inside, as the way he said it was so creepy. Fast forward about a week, and we find out that the trees they cut down actually blocked their view of the sea, and them cutting the trees down helped the view from their rental. Now they've been fined a lot of money and have to do some community work, as well as pay us enough money to put up a fence so that we don't have to see them anymore. Entitled neighbors have also started to rent out, so hopefully we don't ever have to see them again. Edit. I just found this out and I need to share it. 1. My mom has added trees, but they'll take about 100 years to grow tall. 2. We're figuring out the boundary so that we can plant bushes so that the fence is harder to build, though that does unfortunately mean I can't paint it. 3. For everyone saying build a high fence, the build limit on height for fences will not allow this. And 4. Turns out they have a dog that used to go to the bathroom on ours and the nice neighbors' yards, so nice neighbors are prepared to watch them build this fence while we are not at the house to make sure that they don't do anything wrong. My parents are demanding I pay rent and calling me a freeloader just because I have a video game addiction. I, 22 female, have been diagnosed with depression and gaming addiction. I hold a stable job making a very good salary, and I've moved back in with my parents to save up for a down payment as well as their general concern over my mental state. To be frank, I have no hobbies other than gaming, and the only social life I have is playing games with IRL and online friends. However, after I graduated university and came back, my parents have elected to smash one of my monitors, cut my Ethernet cord, and now physically taken my PC due to arguments over my gaming habits. After work, I come home and play games until I go to sleep, and over the weekends, I play games the entire day. It's been going on since 2 weeks ago, and they're refusing to give me back my PC, even though my psychologist says that this is doing more harm than anything. They call me childish for not being able to control my own habits despite the fact that I'm holding my job. This has caused me to become more depressed than usual, with my days now often spent 95% of the time with me in bed aimlessly scrolling through social media. I'm back on my antidepressants, and they seem to think that this is the better alternative. I have voiced this opinion countless times, but they refuse to listen to me or my psychologist, and I have a letter written from them. I used to pay a much above average monthly rent for my 1-bedroom and washroom that I share with my siblings. However, this month I refuse to pay my rent since they're treating me like I'm a kid. And as a kid, they don't have to pay rent. They're now calling me a vindictive jerk and a freeloader because I'm no longer contributing to the household. Edit for info. Some answers to questions I see in the comments. I moved back since I live in the same city, and the logic goes, if you're paying rent anyways, might as well pay it at home to keep the money in the family. I pay for half the electricity, Wi-Fi, and groceries alongside my rent. My rent by itself for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath would be considered way above average. However, I still end up saving money because when I live by myself, I do not cook and order takeout. I shower every day when I come home, just not on Saturday. I eat 2 meals a day, morning and night, since I do not like eating outside the house. I don't cook. I have my own schedule where I will eat dinner, but when I feel like it, which is usually after they finish eating, after which I will do the dishes. Laundry and vacuuming the room is whenever I feel like it's getting too messy. I've paid for rent since I moved back, which would be since August of 2022. I've paid for soundproofing of my room so there's less noise when I game. The majority of arguments are due to me not coming down for dinner when they finish making it. What caused them to destroy my properties the 2 times were 1. Not willing to go to my younger sibling's school play, 2. Sleeping in until noon or afternoon during the weekends. You are correct to assume I do not get any exercise, but I get 6 hours of sleep regularly on the weekdays and however many hours during the weekends.
Not the jerk. Move back out and do you. Don't leech off them or you would be the jerk. They're mistreating you with the destruction of your own stuff, a better reason to withhold rent. My son went to one of the best psych hospitals for a month inpatient and had similar gaming habits. They told me it's how he socializes with his autism, and as long as he's happy and able to support himself, it's not a disorder. He has a full-time job now, he's 23, and 100% of our family's love and support. We even play with him. You may get a lot of varying opinions or mean comments. Ignore them. No one but you gets to decide how you spend your free time. As long as you're not harming anyone and you're not burdening anyone, enjoy it and don't feel guilty. That ought to help with the depression too. Traditional socializing is overrated. I'm 50 years old and I've learned that most socializing is superficial anyway. The close relationships you have, including those online, are all that matters in life. Not the jerk. You're a grown adult. You have a job and you're actively saving money. And unless they are outside every day cutting lumber or hustling money, when I'm sure they're just probably watching TV all day or playing on their phones as most old people do when they accuse people of being kids, forget them. I'd be calling police for destruction of property, to be honest. Am I the jerk for letting my daughter and her husband move in with me so they won't be homeless? This situation is complicated and I'm at my wit's end. I have 2 daughters who are civil to each other but don't get along with each other. My eldest is married to Steve while my youngest is engaged to Adam. Steve and Adam are so different, they disliked each other the first time they met. Steve works part-time because he treasures family time with my daughter. They spend their time traveling and exploring different parts of the states. He spends freely because he often says he can't take his money with him when he dies. Adam is an executive, and for his side business, he owns several dozen properties. He works about 80 hours a week at both jobs because his philosophy is that he wants to make as much money as possible while he's young so that he can retire early. Steve thinks Adam is a corporate shill and basically blames him for everything that's wrong with society. Steve said that Adam is actively keeping people from buying homes and making them dependent on him. Adam thinks Steve is a slacker and has told Steve people like him who do the bare minimum but expect handouts are what's wrong with society. Neither of them are bad and they treat my daughters well. I retired last year due to my health, so Adam built a house for me so that I can live comfortably. I was able to customize everything in the house to fit my taste. Adam owns the house, pays for all of the utilities, and charges me $1 a month for rent. Part of our deal is that no one else can live in the house but me. He was very clear about this. Steve recently lost his job, so he and my eldest are living off of her single income. As you can imagine, they're struggling. My eldest recently called me crying because their savings are almost gone and they can't make next month's rent. She asked if she and Steve could move in with me until he finds another job. I live on a fixed income, so I don't have money to set them up in another apartment. She's my daughter, and I couldn't let her be homeless, so I let Steve and her move in. I gave them strict rules and a time limit on when they had to move out. I didn't think my youngest and Adam would even find out about it because they live in another state, but somehow she found out. She called and screamed at me last night for betraying Adam's trust, but I argued that I'm a mother to 2 daughters and I can't let one be homeless. I told her about the rules and time limit and begged her not to tell Adam. She hung up on me, so I don't know what's going to happen. I know I went back on an agreement, but I had a good reason. Edit. I couldn't add many details in the original post because I was afraid of going over the character limits. Adam pays the taxes and utilities on this house, but because it's the only house he has in this state, he keeps its financials separate from the rest of his properties. Also, he doesn't really have anything to do with the house. Instead, he gave it over to my youngest to take care of, so she handles all the bills and maintenance and pays them out of an account he set up. She noticed the increased utility costs, which is when she called. We just spoke again, and I laid my soul bare to her. I know I was going back on our agreement, but it was to keep her sister from being homeless. We had a lengthy conversation, and in the end, she agreed not to tell Adam. She'll cover the increased utility cost out of her own pocket so he won't notice it. In exchange, her sister and Steve will have 3 months, then we'll have to move out. I originally told them they had 6 months. I'm lucky to have such a compassionate daughter. Thank you for taking the time to read my post. Some of the comments were very hurtful, but some were helpful. You made me realize I should have called my youngest at the start and asked. That would have saved a lot of tears. You're the jerk. I'm sorry, but Adam is doing you a favor by letting you live in this house, and he gave you one rule,
so he's not taking advantage of, and not only did you break this rule, but you did so by allowing the person who insults Adam to live there. Your daughter and her husband want to live by the values they have, fair enough, but they need to be able to have money to back that up. If by Steve losing his part-time job, they're in this much trouble, then they didn't have the money to spend freely and go traveling to begin with. Yeah, you have 2 daughters, but at the end of the day, the person who owns the house has no obligation to house your adult daughter and her husband, and honestly, you. So if you lose your home because of this, then you only have yourself to blame. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. I think when Adam finds out, which you know he will, he's then going to know that he can't trust his own wife to not keep important things from him. Oh, this is going to cause a lot of issues. My boss stole my Super Bowl tickets, so I made him lose a major client. I'm a huge 49ers fan. The rapid all-day tailgate in the parking lot type. A few years ago, we made it back to the Super Bowl. I was working at a consulting firm with a handful of accounts I would interact with daily. One client in particular knew how big of a Niners fan I was. I was the day-to-day lead on his account. He really liked working with me, and we became friends, often grabbing drinks or dinner after our meetings. He had access to a pair of extra company seats to the game, and as a thank you, wanted to give them to me as a gift. He passed the tickets over to the partner on that account, who I will refer to as Jerkhead Partner, to be given to me as a surprise. The game came and went. We lost. It sucked. The next time we met, we went to drinks afterwards, and he mentioned, "Hey, by the way, why didn't you go to the game? I heard someone else was in your seats." I asked, "What game?" He said, "The Super Bowl." Confused, I answered, "I didn't have seats to the Super Bowl." He told me that he gave Jerk a pair of his company tickets for me as a gift so I could attend. I had zero idea what he was talking about. He looked shocked, told me to quietly ask around about it and get back to him. When I was back in the office the next week, I found out through one of the secretaries that Jerk had given a pair of Super Bowl tickets to another one of his clients as a gift from our company. I might have let this sort of thing go to keep the peace under different circumstances, but these were seats on the 30-yard line to see the 49ers play in the Super Bowl. I was ticked. I considered confronting Jerk myself, but realized it was the client who had noticed I wasn't there in the first place, so if I let him handle it, there would be no blowback on me. So I texted him, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for thinking of me with those seats. It appears that they were given to another one of our firm's clients." He texted back right away in all caps, "Are you kidding me?" And then, "Pretend I never told you. Let me handle this." He followed up with me about formulating a plan. A few days later, we were asked to come down for a meeting in their office. The client requested the partner be present, not entirely unusual, so Jerk and I hopped a flight the next week and headed over to their office. Little did Jerk know, my client had orchestrated a wonderfully awkward little show to catch him red-handed. When we entered the conference room, it was all the usual suspects, along with a woman in her 30s we didn't recognize. My client immediately introduces Jerk. "This is Stephanie such and such, VP from the other department. She wanted to sit in on this meeting. Hey, OP, you guys must already know her from the Super Bowl." She then responds as she goes to shake my hand. "Oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there? I'm sorry if I forgot." Client responds, "Geez, Steph, how much did you have to drink? They were sitting right next to you." Client looks at me and I say, "Sorry, I wasn't there. Are you thinking of someone else?" At this point, Jerk is looking visibly uncomfortable, probably trying to come up with an excuse. He starts in with an, when Stephanie says over to him, "No, so-and-so from the other company was in their seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working on with them that I don't know about?" Obviously not. They were in completely different industries. It would be like Coca-Cola partnering with John Deere. Jerk lets out an, again, and the client immediately speaks over him, asking, "Jerk, I gave you those tickets for OP." At this point, Jerk is turning bright red. He responds with, well, he wasn't going to be able to make it, so he must have given the seats away to someone else," and turns to me, looking for me to cover for him. Client smirks at me. I respond, what are you talking about?" Client, "You gave me tickets to the Super Bowl?" Client suddenly raises his voice. "Jerk, those tickets were a personal thank you gift to OP. Did you give them to someone else? Was it another client?" Jerk butts in with an, Maybe something got mixed up in the office. Client went quiet for what probably seemed like an eternity to Jerk. He then looked down, grabbed his portfolio and iPad, put them into his briefcase, and said, I think this meeting is over. OP, it seems as if I owe you a thank you gift. Let's go to lunch. Stephanie, you're welcome to join. Jerk, I need to evaluate our relationship. Please go back home and expect to hear from us next week. Jerk suggests he would like to join, presumably to do damage control, and Stephanie sternly tells him, I don't think that's a good idea, and asks for the front desk to see Jerk out. As soon as he's in the elevator, we all break out laughing hysterically. Stephanie wasn't really a VP, just an employee at the company who client had drafted into helping with his pre-planned meeting skit. But she did end up coming to lunch with us and was a fellow Niners fan and a total blast to hang out with. On our way to the restaurant, I got a desperate text from Jerk saying I needed to cover for the firm and that we could discuss things when I got back. I replied, yes, we need to talk, but I'll see what I can do. Client told me to wait a couple hours and then respond to him. 1, to expect invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets. Resale is way above face value. It was over $10,000. As well as our lunch. He picked a pricey spot and made a big show of overspending, and that he expected them to be paid immediately. 2, expected I be given a direct apology. 3, expected a written apology to his company for what he considered theft. And 4, he will only interact with me or another one of our firm's partners, never Jerk. This whole thing caused a stir with the other partners, and I actually came off looking great because it appeared that I had made a good faith effort to save the client for the firm despite being the victim in the situation. The client would transfer to another partner, which meant Jerk lost his profit share on any work with them. Oh, and the other partners in the firm made Jerk pay the invoices back out of his salary. In retrospect, I really have no idea what the heck this guy was thinking. Did he seriously believe the client would just not notice me not thanking him for the Super Bowl tickets? Anyway, the well was kind of poisoned for me there long term because Jerk wasn't going anywhere. I left the firm a few months later for a much better position. Client ultimately terminated their relationship with that firm a year later. He actually now works with a good friend of mine at a competing firm. I'm still ticked I missed out on the Super Bowl even though we lost. Hoping we make it back this year so I can finally go to one in person. Go Niners. Am I the jerk for not supporting my wife's desire to go to medical school? I, male 35, have a wife who's 34 who stays home to take care of our 2 kids. I am a relatively wealthy software engineer, and I've been trying to be financially responsible to save money for retirement and my kids' college. After getting into a few medical TV shows, my wife has had an obsession with becoming a doctor and has been trying to convince me to pay for her applications to multiple medical schools. I think this is a stupid decision because my wife has been out of her communications degree for 11 years now, and she hasn't even taken the MCAT or anything like that. And if by some slim chance she gets into medical school, her tuition would wreck our finances and cause all sorts of problems with childcare. I tried explaining to her that this decision isn't realistic and suggested that she try to do some other training, like being a CNA, to get a taste for the medical field first, but she got mad at me and said that I'm stealing away her career aspirations. Am I the jerk? Edit. Here's some context for my comments. I told her I would support her taking a smaller step into the medical field by becoming a CNA or a nurse first, because it's more realistic for her to get that position and then advance to medical school. Also, I never forced her to stay at home and do childcare. I do a third of the housework on top of my job, and she asked to stay at home since we got married. She just recently changed her mind. I understand your concern. I don't overly restrict her spending, and any financial rule that we create that is imposed on her is also imposed on me. All large-scale financial decisions over $1,000 have to be approved by both of us to occur. We both can buy necessities and do anything we want underneath $1,000 occasionally. Since her 50 applications exceed $1,000, we both needed to approve, and I don't approve at all. Edit 2. More context from relative things I addressed in comments. Additionally, my wife is refusing to take the MCAT despite my encouragement to do so first, because she thinks studying for it will slow down her timeline. And to those who are suggesting I agree to let her apply to fewer schools, she does not like that compromise. She insists she has to maximize her chances by applying to at least 50. She also doesn't like the compromise I offered of trying another medical career first, like nursing. Not the jerk. Retired nurse here. Ask her if she would apply to nursing school. If she has her bachelor's degree, any field as long as it's a bachelor's degree, she can apply for a 16-month accelerated RN bachelor's program. She can always pursue more advanced degrees if she chooses. She'll soon see how television programs in no way ever reflect reality. There's a huge demand for nurses, but again, she will quickly realize why there's so many positions available. Am I the jerk for yelling at my brother and kicking him out of my house? I'm 28, female, and my brother, who's 33, and I have a difficult relationship, all because I started dating his best friend, 34, male, 8 years ago, and for him, that was an unforgivable betrayal. And I know that to this day, he still thinks the same. That's why our relationship is almost non-existent now. I apologize thousands of times for falling in love with his best friend and for not having been able to fall in love with someone else, but he never forgave me. We only see each other at family parties, and that's it. He didn't attend our wedding and didn't want to meet our kids, who are 6, 4, and 2, when they were born either, so you can imagine how much he hates me. A few days ago, we celebrated our mom's 62nd birthday at my house because hers was being renovated. Well, my mom begged him to come because she's sick and she doesn't know if she will be able to celebrate her birthday with us next year, and he accepted her invitation and went to my house. Of course, since he arrived, he made it clear that he was only there for our mom and that he was not interested in playing happy family with me or my kids. I kept quiet because I wanted my mom to have a good day and ignore him. After cutting the cake, my mom opened her gifts, and one of those gifts was an album of the most important moments of all her kids and grandkids, something that for some reason she asked for a few months ago. And she was so happy with the album that she started looking at all of the photos and showing them to the guests while remembering when she took each photo of us, her kids. In that album, there were photos of my brother with my husband at their high school graduation. My husband was included because he and my brother have been friends since they were babies, so he's like another son to her. And when my brother saw them, he said something like, "What a nice picture. No one would suspect that you would get with my little sister a few years later." My sister, 31, told him to shut up, that he was being rude, but he didn't stop and kept looking at the photos to say things that nobody wanted to hear. So I got tired and asked him to leave my house. I told him that he was being rude and inconsiderate with our mother, that I didn't want him there. And of course he stormed off, and now he thinks that the villain of the movie is me. And the worst thing is that one of our sisters, who's 36, thinks the same thing because she thinks that I should have kept quiet since it's my fault that he's like that. Am I the jerk? Edit. I don't know if my brother wishes he was the one with my husband, but the truth is that I suspected it many times when I saw how affectionate he was with my husband. Like, my husband had a few girlfriends before me, and my brother hated all of them. But I thought it was just jealousy because he didn't spend as much time with him. But if I think about it, it does look weird. He's in his 30s, and he only ever had a girlfriend when he was 12 or 13. He was always possessive of my husband and overly affectionate, which my husband always hated. So maybe it's true. Maybe that's why I unconsciously apologized to him, because deep down, I knew he was in love with him too. I don't know. Edit 2. I spoke to my husband, and he says that nothing ever happened between them, that they were just friends, that he never did or said anything to make him think otherwise. So I don't know what's wrong with him. I just know that I feel an enormous guilt. If he's in love with him, I'll never be able to feel at peace again.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.